Chapter 1042. Guoming argued, but even if we want to classify and pre-treat, we can't just build a few pools for classification and collection, right? Sooner or later it has to be mixed together. It doesn't make any sense. According to the plan that the expert group once gave us, it should be that each special wastewater must have a complete set of pre-treatment process, which includes chemical, physical, and biochemical means, and involves the cultivation of specific bacteria. For example, the water from the pharmaceutical factory containing antibiotics can only be detoxified through specific bacteria. Another example is the heavy metal wastewater, which is insoluble after the formation of sulfate. We have to add sulfuric acid first, and then chloride is insoluble. In the next stage, we add hydrochloric acid, and then there is a whole process of prebiochemical process. At present, we have 5 kinds of the most difficult wastewater to treat in our factory, so we have to build 5 smaller, but complete and highly technical small and medium sewage treatment stations for these 5 kinds of wastewater. First, through these 5 small sewage treatment stations, the 5 kinds of ultra-difficult wastewater with the most difficult problems will complete a whole set of pre-treatment processes, and then enter the overall treatment section, and combine with other easily biochemical and easily treatable wastewater for treatment. The initial construction cost of Tangshan Industrial Plant was only 150 million yuan. It was because of the lack of this most critical step that later more than a dozen technical changes failed to achieve the effect, and now we can only rebuild it. Under the premise of complete reconstruction, considering that 5 small treatment stations and a large comprehensive station must be built, the total cost of reconstruction will be as high as 400 million yuan. What's the use of investing 20 million yuan to build 5 single ponds side by side now? Isn't this a waste of money? Although Qin Guang said that even if Lu Chemical doesn't participate in your sole proprietorship, you will rebuild it, I still think we should plan before we act. Don't act too hastily. Guoming argued. However, Qin Guang didn't want to listen to his seemingly reasonable, but actually useless theory. Comrade Guo, you are just a mortal. You will never understand the realm of God. How can I tell you that as soon as the 5 ponds are repaired, the old man will take out the photocatalyst from his crotch and throw it in? The super complicated set of processes you said will be done in minutes? An investment of 400 million renminbi isn't even as useful as a photocatalyst, okay? Of course, if Qin Guang directly told Guoming that he already had 5 unprecedented photocatalyst formulas, and as long as he took out the finished products, all the ultra-difficult wastewater in their factory would be solved, Guoming would definitely call the mental hospital and ask someone to tie Qin Guang up. Elder Guo, say no more. I've made up my mind. You just need to carry it out. My requirements are as follows. Bring out the design within 3 days, start the ground within a week, complete the main construction within 20 days, and complete everything within a month. I'll arrange for someone to transfer the money to the company's account right away. You go and find someone right away. The structure of these pools was not complicated. All of them were poured on the spot. In short, the faster the better. Of course, the quality must be guaranteed as well. You can find the construction company now. If the construction company says that we are in too much of a hurry, then we will increase the price. Pile more people on top. Qin Guang looked at Guoming calmly and said so. Guoming, who was in the middle of a long speech, was suddenly speechless. He stared at Qin Guang, but his eyes were clear, his eyes were bright, and his expression was normal. He was really not joking. Qin Guang patted his shoulder again. Anyway, Elder Guo, you have to work hard first. Just think of it as doing it for Tangshan Factory. There are some things that I can't tell you for now, but when you fix the ponds, I will give you a big surprise. After saying that, Qin Guang turned and walked out of the office, leaving only an inexplicably domineering and handsome back. Guoming stared at his back blankly, but he silently remembered something in his mind. When the review team came, he thought that the floating mud on the water would definitely be destroyed. But in the end, the mud inexplicably sank and hardened at the bottom of the water for 7 days, until the review team left. When the review team left, the mud popped up again. It looked like it was going to destroy the pot again, but inexplicably turned into bricks and floated on the water. Guoming didn't believe that Qin Guang was not behind this. Could it be that he had some new ideas this time? Guoming clenched his fist tightly. Must be like this. In short, it was right to believe in him. After leaving Tangshan Factory, Qin Guang returned to the hotel, opened the web page and sat on the chair in a daze. He racked his brain like crazy, thinking about the world of acting and the perfect body of a god. An extremely strong desire to survive forced him to move forward, and he couldn't breathe. The post-production of Women had been completed, and now it was just waiting for the release. At first, Qin Guang's goal was only the box office. He didn't really expect to rely on only one movie to make the whole world recognize his acting skills. As the saying goes, there is no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. Acting skills were extremely difficult to quantify. It was easy to convince some people, but it was not easy to convince the whole world and get public and comprehensive recognition. According to his original plan, he planned to make a name for himself with Women and the play Thunderstorm that he had acted in before, and then make a movie specifically for the Oscars. The Oscars was the most recognized performing arts award in the world, but it was just a game for Americans. Chinese actors were born to be inferior to others in this kind of award evaluation. Therefore, Qin Guang had even planned to keep fighting. If one movie couldn't make it, then he would make 2 or 3 movies. He would find the best director, write the best script, shoot the best movie, and learn from Li Zi, who had accompanied him for 20 years. With his own world-class acting skills as a foundation, he could always make it to the top slowly. But now there was no time. God knew what the next Lion Sky Cup would be like, so he had to seize every opportunity in front of him. Therefore, Qin Guang decided to use women to fight for the Oscars. But he didn't understand the film industry and he didn't know how to operate it, so he could only find Big Beard Deng. What? You want to compete for the Oscars? You're not kidding me, are you? On the other end of the phone, Big Beard Deng thought that he had heard wrongly, or that Qin Guang had gone crazy. Qin Guang said heavily into the phone, "Uncle, I'm not kidding. Tell me, is my acting skills the best you've ever seen?" Big Beard Deng was stunned for a moment. Although he felt that Qin Guang's idea and statement were crazy, he didn't seem to be arrogant during the filming. His acting skills had indeed surpassed the level of impeccable and entered a new stage. His strength lay not only in his own acting skills, but also in his ability to make the actors who acted with him, and even the environment in the whole scene, be infected and influenced by him. Qin Guang's acting skills were indeed ahead of the times. Give him an Oscars, reasonable and convincing. But the selection of the Oscars was not just about an actor's acting skills. There were many things involved. The level of the film itself, the influence and reputation of the film, the influence of the film on a global scale, and the reputation that the actor accumulated step by step, and even the preferences and relationships of the judges, and even the mood of the judges when they voted and made a decision, were all external factors that could affect the final result. In addition, Big Beard Deng was not belittling himself. Although Women was a good film, and Qin Guang's performance was impeccable, the whole film was a commercial film tailor-made for Jiang Yage. The plot and concept were not at the level of the Oscars at all. In addition, Qin Guang acted well, but there were always many scenes in which he did not participate in himself. The performance of other actors with and without him could be said to be a world of difference. It was intolerable that there were such obvious shortcomings in a film that was nominated for the Oscars. Big Beard even had a rare feeling of inferiority. I dragged Qin Guang down. If Qin Guang had acted in The Revenant, or Manchester by the Sea, the Oscars would have been his. Well, Qin Guang, I admit that you are the best actor in the world, but it's useless. I'm not an Oscar judge. And isn't our film a little too weak? How about I help you contact Lian Xuan, Spielberg, or Cameron? Let's do the next one? Big Beard Deng really did not want to admit his failure. However, Qin Guang immediately rejected the idea. He knew those directors, and it would take at least 3 to 5 years for a film to be released. At that time, his coffin would be filled with evergreens. No, just women. Big Beard Deng sighed. Alas, but your idea is not realistic. The film itself is just a very ordinary commercial film. I'm afraid it's not even at the level of being nominated for the Oscars, let alone winning the Oscars. In addition, we have no overseas distribution plans for the time being. Films that have not been screened in commercial cinemas in Los Angeles are not eligible for the Oscars. Is that so? Qin Guang could not hide his disappointment. Big Beard Deng intended to completely dispel his crazy idea. So, let's do it next time? Unexpectedly, Qin Guang searched on the internet and said, "It's okay. There are still 2 weeks before December 31st. I'll contact Tang Xiaokai of the Tang Jie Foundation to help. He has a lot of connections in the United States. We'll try to find a cinema in Los Angeles next week before December 31st. Big Beard Deng. Oh, by the way, we still need cinemas in other places. It's okay. I have a friend in Detroit called Bona Pierce. He's a director of the American Boxing Association. He also has a lot of connections. Find a cinema in Detroit to show it too." Big Beard Deng. Then I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you for the rest of the matter, uncle. You can use your connections or spend money. No matter what, you must help me submit the name list within January. You must pay attention to this matter. It's very urgent and crucial. Big Beard Dang felt that he was breaking down a little. Do you even understand what an Oscar is? Do you think it's cabbages on the street that you can randomly stuff in and win an award? Then it's settled. Qin Guang did as he said. Without waiting for Big Beard to break down, he immediately hung up and began to contact Tang Xiaokai. His fighting spirit was super strong. As for how to achieve the statue of a god with a perfect body, he did not have any good ideas at the moment. He definitely could not organize a fighting competition. He had internal force. Even if he sealed his skills, he would still be questioned by the industry insiders. They would think that he was bullying people with internal force. On the other end, Big Beard Dang was holding his phone in a daze. His mind was still buzzing. Does he mean that I made a commercial film with male idols but I'm going to compete for an Oscar? Why do I feel that this is so sci-fi? Director Dang, what's wrong? Yang Shi, who was next to him, leaned over. Big Beard Dang looked at Yang Shi with a pair of dead fish eyes. Qin Guang said that he wants to win an Oscar with women. Yang Shi, F***CK. Chapter 1043. Every country had its own film censorship system. From the time a film was reported to the time it was approved, to the time it was scheduled in the commercial cinemas, it usually took a few months or a few years. The situation in China was more complicated than overseas. There were more political factors involved, especially when it came to overseas films. The process was even more complicated, and there were many scenes that had to be cut. After many overseas films were introduced, the audience was confused. They felt that the plot was broken and the connection was not coherent. Then they started to scold the director, saying that he was a famous Hollywood director. How could he make a film if he couldn't even tell a story? In fact, the director was the scapegoat for everything. They really did nothing wrong. Most of the time, it was because many important scenes in European and American films often contained ambiguous scenes between the male and female protagonists. Or perhaps they were politically skewed, so when they were cut, the key scenes were missing. Of course, the audience would have a headache watching it. Women did not have to worry about this at all in China. First, it was because Beard Dang had long been familiar with the system and process of domestic film censorship and approval. He himself made commercial films that were suitable for both young and old people, and his personal connections inside and outside the circle were completely enough. Second, it was because the three major investors were Jin Shiyue and Jiang Ye's companies, Qin Guang's Qingguang Agency, and Chenda Pictures, the leading domestic cinema chain. Now that Jin Shiyue and Jiang Ye's company shares were merged into Qingguang Group, Qin Guang had a honeymoon relationship with the elders. They were all on the same side, so there wouldn't be any problems. As for Qin Guang, it wasn't difficult to get the film to be screened in Europe and America. There weren't so many political considerations in Europe and America. It was more about the operation of the capital circle. As long as you had money, you could buy a small or medium-sized cinema chain to show it yourself. You had to get approval from the European and American Film Association. You could even wave a check to open the way. As long as the film didn't involve a clear political stance, the green light was guaranteed. Qin Guang called Tang Xiaokai. The two of them had a good chat and quickly reached a consensus. Tang Xiaokai took the initiative to pat his chest and say that he was going to find someone. Tang Jie Fund had a lot of shares in several large foreign film companies and maintained long-term cooperation with many people in power in the Film Association. Although Qin Guang's matter came suddenly, it wasn't difficult to just pass the censorship and get the rights to be screened in a few commercial cinema chains. Brother Xiaokai, who had not been in contact for a long time, had recently withdrawn his focus from Qingguang Group. He only played the role of a small shareholder in the company, and the proportion of shares he held had been decreasing. However, the main profit point of the Tang Jie Fund was not in Qingguang Group. In the beginning, he invested in the establishment of Qingguang Brokerage because he was entrusted by the elders in Beijing. He was purely rushing to give money away, and he did not expect to recover his capital. Now the 20 million US invested had not gone to waste. Even though the proportion of shares had dropped to less than 20%, the actual value had already exceeded 500 million. Even in the investment market, it was a miracle. It was a typical case of low investment and high return. After hanging up the phone with Tang Xiaokai, Qin Guang was much more relaxed after he instantly implemented the matter. Qin Guang didn't need to contact Bonner Pierce. Tang Jie Fund's influence in Europe and America was wider than he had imagined. Tang Xiaokai would be enough. Therefore, some things were like this. If he didn't do it, it would feel impossible. However, once he was forced into a desperate situation, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and do it. Chen Guang realized that these seemingly impossible things could actually be made possible. As long as he could reach the Oscar selection criteria and sneak into the list, he could try to do whatever he wanted in the future. It seemed absurd and impossible, but what if he succeeded? It was just like everything he had done in the past. In the eyes of others, they were absurd and unrealistic, but didn't they all become true in the end? At most, he would just settle the contact details and identities of the judges and go straight to them. If his PY transaction skill was on cooldown, he would forcefully do it. If the skill was not on cooldown, he would either threaten and bribe the other party or force the other party to watch the movie. At the same time, he would reason with the other party. For example, "Friend, touch your heart and tell me, what do you think of my performance? Isn't it amazing? Isn't it cool? Isn't it powerful?" Taking 10,000 steps back, Lioli had tricked him so badly. At such a critical moment of life and death, shouldn't you take the initiative to make it up to me and help me give the other party a super powerful hypnosis? Since the Oscar was a mechanism that the judges were in charge of, there were loopholes that he could exploit. In the past, others did not take advantage of this loophole because they did not have PY transactions. They did not have world-class acting skills that could convince everyone, much less Lioli's godly hypnosis. Chen Guang had 10,000 reasons to believe that he could do it, so he did not feel guilty. For the sake of world-class acting skills, I paid such a huge price, went through so many life and death situations, suffered so much torture and pain, and finally mastered this unparalleled ability. In the past, I did not care about this bit of fame. I felt that good wine needed no bush, and that the honor and statue that should be mine would be mine sooner or later. But now, I don't have time to wait. I want to live. So, to my competitors at the Oscars this year, I'm sorry. I deserve to be at the Oscars. Although my plan is a little shameful and shameless, that's because I have a clear conscience. No matter how difficult it was to quantify acting skills, it did not matter. As long as I won the award in the most authoritative voting and gave people a preconceived impression of me, it would be fine even if there was a flood of controversy outside. Just like in the past, there would definitely be some people who approved of me, and there would also be others who doubted me. Those who approved of me would gradually convince those who doubted me, and those who doubted me would think of ways to nitpick in the movie. They would try their best to find a bone in an egg, but it would be useless. Chen Guang was 100% sure that when the time came, those who wanted to nitpick would not be able to find any thorns. Instead, they would become his new fans because they studied him. Because my acting skills have always been perfect. The deeper they studied, the deeper they would sink. If I did not win the Oscars, others would not know that there was an actor named Chen Guang who had surpassed the times. But as long as I won the Oscars first, it did not matter how big the controversy was. As long as I accumulated time, the controversy would slowly become recognition, and I would have more and more fans. Coupled with the creation of public opinion, I could easily get rid of the situation where a pearl was covered in dust, and become the well-deserved #1 actor in the world in one fell swoop. The statue of a god in the acting world would come into being. Acting was the same as literature. As long as it reached a sufficiently high level, people would first think that someone was very good, or that someone's writing was rich in content. When the later generations analyzed and interpreted it, they would even take the initiative to reveal more profound meaning beyond the author's original intentions. The more they looked at it, the more profound it became, and the more they looked at it. For example, the domestic readology world had such a phenomenon. Chao Shuichin might have casually said something in the original work, but the readologists of the later generations would be able to come up with dozens or even hundreds of different explanations. For example, the egg in Shui Baochai's hand is very round. If Chao Shuichin had simply said it, the readologist would have an explanation. The egg indicated that Shui Baochai was slick and had a thick body. So what if she could give birth? It indicated that Shui Baochai was slick in handling matters in the Jiao residence. She had arranged everything properly and orderly. A simple description of a round egg could lead to the Jiao residence's precarious situation in the imperial court. Then, it could lead to the relationship between Shui Baochai and Jiao Baoyu under the bed. It was so rich in content that it made one's hair stand on end. If Chao Shuichin could jump out from his coffin, he might slam the chopping board and make a fuss. Back then, I only wrote that sentence. It was just a small number of words. What kind of deep meaning was there? Are you all so capable? Why don't you go to heaven? But the ancients were long gone. No one knew what Grandmaster Chao was really thinking. Acting was the same. When actors were facing the same camera, they might frown or they might glare. To express the same emotion, there were countless ways to choose. For example, anger. Some people would yell and scream to vent their anger, while others would stare coldly and silently. As for how to deal with it, everyone had their own opinions. At that time, Qin Guang's true micro-expressions could be seen in front of the camera. Even if it was just a simple raise of an eyebrow, a tiny wrinkle on his forehead, or the curve of his mouth that required a magnifying glass to be seen, it could even be interpreted with countless rich meanings. Because his performance could withstand scrutiny, he always substituted himself into the real world of the character in front of the camera. He completely lived as a different person. After settling these matters, Qin Guang fell into a long contemplation. He thought about the matter of the strongest perfect body. This was really hard to achieve. As he was in a daze, his phone rang. He picked it up and his eyes lit up. It was Teacher Zhua. Teacher Zhua had finally gotten off the plane. As soon as the call was connected, Zhua Jingxi's sweet voice came from the other side. Qin Guang, are you in Tangshan? Yes, I'm here. What about you, Teacher Zhua? Are you in Wujing Airport? I'll pick you up right away. No, I've already arrived at Tangshan Industrial Factory. I'm in Hualing's laboratory. If you have time, come over now. But if you have other things to do, don't worry. I'm not in a hurry. Come over right away. Qin Guang thought to himself, how long has it been since we last met? How could Teacher Zhua not be in a hurry? We're not an ordinary man and woman, are we? He looked at the time. It was already past 7 o'clock in the evening. Zhua Jingxi must have rushed directly to Tangshan after getting off the plane at Wujing Airport. Perhaps she didn't tell him before because she wanted to give him a surprise? Hualing, quickly adjust the temperature of the water bath pot. It must be controlled at around 54.3 degrees Celsius. The more accurate, the better. Zhongyu, help me check the relevant information on 16-membered macrolide antibiotics. The pharmaceutical factory in Tangshan Industrial Park should be producing this type of medicine. I need to determine the specific catalytic reaction equation. Hualing, after setting the temperature of the water bath pot, configure it with a concentration of 379% sodium chloride solution. First, put the catalyst carrier in for 55 minutes. Very good, Zhongyu. Now check the paper published by Prince's laboratory on SCI on the 17th of last month. There is a summary of the experimental process and related parameters of using this photocatalyst to catalyze ester compounds. We have to completely replicate the experimental process to determine whether it will be useful in the end. While Qin Guang was still on the road, Zhua Jingxi, who had just gotten off the plane, had already changed into a white coat and entered work mode. Although Hualing and Zhongyu hadn't seen Zhua Jingxi for a long time and were even assigned to someone else's project team, once Zhua Jingxi came back, they didn't even need to adapt. It was as if the three of them had returned to the state of the experimental team with tacit understanding and high efficiency. At this time, although Zhua Jingxi had a tired face, it couldn't hide the glow in her eyes. She used to think that she was of no use to Qin Guang, so even though Wang Ren and Su Lijing had been executed, she could have returned to Gokyo University. However, she still chose to stay in the laboratory abroad and never came back. Firstly, it was a rare trip for her and she had spent a lot of money on it. So if she returned empty-handed, she wouldn't be able to learn anything and would disappoint Professor Xu Lirong. At the same time, it would also be a waste of the 500,000 yen that Qin Guang sponsored for her. On the other hand, she might be out of the country, but she did not sever her contact with the country. Although she didn't have a complete grasp of Qin Guang's movements, she still knew a thing or two. Indeed, Qin Guang wasn't born to be an ordinary person, and he was destined to soar into the sky. An ordinary outstanding man might have one or two above-average women around him, but when a man was as good as Qin Guang, he would inevitably become the focus of women. Although he did confess his love to her in public, Zhua Jingxi secretly compared herself with the female protagonists who had scandals with him, especially Jin Shirui and Jiang Yage, the vice president of his company, Tang Ying, the person in charge of his subsidiary company, Chu Zijin, the senior beauty Wenwen who had an ambiguous relationship with him at school, and even Sun Xiaoxuan, who was also infatuated with him in her class. Zhua Jingxi, who came from an ordinary family, subconsciously felt a little ashamed of her inferiority. Although she was a little confident in her appearance, Zhua Jingxi felt that whether it was personality, workability, family background, or even the help she could form for Qin Guang, she simply didn't have a sense of existence. She was even the opposite of others, completely a burden to him. Although he didn't care about money no matter what, she had already taken an 800,000 yuan car from him, plus 500,000 yuan in cash. There was a total of 1,300,000 yuan here. He said it casually, treating it as a maintenance fee, but Zhua Jingxi felt that Qin Guang wasn't a person who would support others, and she was even less willing to be supported by others. Moreover, if it was just to support him, she had only slept with him once, and yet she took away 1,300,000 yuan. She was a little too expensive. Therefore, in the past 6 months, Zhuo Jingxi could have come back, but she deliberately didn't. She deliberately hid and stayed away from the center of trouble. She also wanted herself to be calmer and re-examine her relationship with Chen Guang. At the same time, she also hoped that he would be calmer, hoping that he would understand that he should have a better woman to be worthy of him. But this time the situation was different. Chen Guang was in trouble, and it was trouble that he couldn't solve. He had been having a headache about it for a long time. Most importantly, she seemed to be able to help him. His troubles were in direct conflict with his profession. Zhuo Jingxi thought that she had calmed down after 6 months, but the moment she heard the news, her heart was reignited. She thought that she could calm down, but it turned out to be useless. She couldn't control the deepest and truest thoughts in her heart. Not only did distance and time not dilute the taboo attachment she had for this former student, but it also made the old wine stronger. Therefore, she threw away the position of laboratory director that she had worked hard in America for half a year and came back without hesitation. She even took something from the laboratory that she shouldn't have, and carried a great risk of responsibility. Her thinking was very simple. Since Chen Guang was really involved in the environmental protection industry, and she had the ability to help him in this field, to be his helper, then I will come back, I will help him. As for her studies in America, she could give up on her career in America. It didn't matter if she had to bear the risk of stealing the samples from Prince's laboratory and leaking the results of the laboratory in China. As long as she could help him in this matter, it didn't matter even if she got sued and was called a thief in the academic world. I have to prove one thing: I am useful to him. I am not a woman who can only obtain from him without knowing how to return the favor. To him, Tangshan factory might seem important, but it wasn't indispensable. However, even if she could only help him a little in the field of environmental protection, as long as she could help him keep this foundation, it would prove the meaning of her existence. It was with this kind of mentality that Zhuo Jingxi returned to China at lightning speed. After getting off the plane, she didn't think of resting at all and went straight to the laboratory to work. She planned to go all out to help Chen Guang. Of course, she also has her own selfish motives. Compared with girls like Jin Shiriyue and Jiang Yage who attract worldwide attention, she is too inconspicuous. But as long as Chen Guang was dragged into the field of environmental protection, then I, Zhuo Jingxi, as the recognized disciple of Professor Xu Lirong of Gokyo University, and a new young scholar in the field of photocatalysis, would have enough power and status to stand shoulder to shoulder with celebrities. I want to seize this opportunity to grab the throat of my fate. This is the link between me and Chen Guang. I will personally guard this link. Teacher Zhuo, you brought the sample back like this. Will there be any problems overseas? Hua Ling asked tentatively as she was busy. Zhuo Jingxi waved her hand indifferently. It doesn't matter, this is my research results. Although it belongs to Prince's laboratory, I only use it within the scope of Tangshan Industrial Factory, and it won't be easily leaked. Even if they find out, they can take their time in China to file a lawsuit. Anyway, Chen Guang's Tangshan Industrial Factory may have a chance to be saved. Zhongyu said, but Teacher Zhuo, the new photocatalyst you brought back only has special effects on ester organic compounds. If you look at the entire Tangshan Industrial Factory, there are a total of 5 kinds of ultra-difficult wastewater. Ester antibiotics are only one of them. Zhuo Jingxi smiled. You don't understand. The current situation of Tangshan Industrial Factory looks bad, but in the final analysis, it's just that the microbes can't be cultivated, and the biochemical treatment efficiency is very low. We will start with antibiotics and improve the most difficult growth environment for microbes. It is possible for microbes to reproduce in large quantities. At that time, it may still be difficult to meet the standard, but at least we can save more than half of the dosage. Sewage treatment is a very systematic thing, and the biggest difficulty is often a breakthrough at a certain point. We first overcome the biggest difficulty, and then we can hit the surface and solve the urgent problem of Tangshan Industrial Factory. Hua Ling and Zhongyu looked at each other and sighed in their hearts. Teacher Zhuo was indeed Teacher Zhuo. In this aspect of thinking, the two of them were indeed ashamed of their inferiority. In addition, as long as the photocatalyst I brought back is effective, even if Chen Guang rebuilt Tangshan Industrial Factory, he can save at least 100 million yuan in costs. Alright, cheer up. Let's first prepare for the experiment. From tomorrow onwards, the whole army will be mobilized. When Chen Guang arrived at the laboratory, he saw Zhuo Jingxi cheering Hua Ling and Zhongyu with big dark circles under her eyes. He stood quietly at the door with the glow of the crescent moon behind him. Looking at the familiar yet slightly unfamiliar woman in the white coat, he was dumbfounded. Long time no see. You have lost weight. Qin Guang swallowed his saliva. His throat was a little dry. She really had lost weight. Even with the white coat covering her, it was clear that she seemed to be a size smaller than before. Her original figure was a very standard S shape, plump and tall. She was the typical representative of a slightly plump beauty. But now, the white coat of Zhongyu, who was about the same height as her but not fat, looked like a child's robe on her. The traces of bones on her wrists were clearly visible, and her fingers were even more slender because of the lack of flesh. On her originally charming face, her cheekbones were even slightly raised. Although she was still beautiful, there was a bit of coldness on top of her charming beauty. She had a hard time in America for the past 6 months. Indescribable self-blame rose in Qin Guang's heart. I should have pulled her back more forcefully earlier. Zhuo Jingxi's hand that was holding the test tube suddenly froze. She turned her head sideways and looked at Qin Guang in the direction of the door. Her eyes were slightly moist, and her nose was slightly sour. She had thought that when she saw him again, she would be able to maintain her calm and smile. She would say to him with a smile, "You disobedient bad student, did you miss me?" But the reality was that Zhuo Jingxi's mouth was only slightly open, and she could not say a word. Compared to the past, Qin Guang's face had lost some of his childishness and looked more mature. His gaze seemed to have become deeper because of more experiences. After being in a position of power for a long time, his brows seemed to have gained some of the aura of a leader. He was no longer the poor student from a poor family. He had become more mature and more responsible. He was no longer carefree. The various troubles in life had buried a hint of melancholy between his brows. He seemed to have grown a little taller. His skin was a little darker. However, what had not changed was his pair of clear eyes that could see through people's hearts. Zhuo Jingxi's breathing became more and more rapid. She did not know how much she would miss him until they met. Chapter 1044. Hua Ling, who was at the side, reached out and quietly took the test tube from Zhuo Jingxi's hand. Finally freed, Zhuo Jingxi pounced forward. She couldn't care less about the two outsiders anymore. Like a tired bird returning to its nest, she plunged into Qin Guang's embrace and hugged him tightly. Qin Guang hugged her back. Zhuo Jingxi wanted to kiss him hard, but she did not do so in the end. After hugging him quietly for a while, she let go of Qin Guang and patted his shoulder. She forced herself to calm down and said, "I've lost weight, but you've gained weight." "Of course not. I'm strong, not fat." Qin Guang grinned. Zhuo Jingxi rolled her eyes at him. "You still have a glib tongue. But you've really lost a lot of weight. You must have had a hard time in America. Are you skimping on your food and clothes?" "I didn't skimp on my food and clothes. It's just that time waits for no one when it comes to scientific research. If I'm a step slower, I'll be a step behind others. If I'm a step ahead, I'll always fall behind. Since I've gone and stayed in Prince's lab, I can't stop. Otherwise, if I give others a lead and the results come out first, all my hard work will go to waste. Besides, it's better to be thin. Isn't it fashionable to be thin for beauty now? That's not true. You're as fleshy as before. It's better." Zhuo Jingxi looked like she was about to cry. "Are you saying that I'm not good-looking now?" Qin Guang waved his hands. "No, absolutely not. Both are good-looking but different kinds of beauty. It's just that I think you're healthier the way you were before. Anyway, since you're back, don't leave again. Although you're studying abroad, you're still working for someone else. It's quite boring. By the way, you suddenly came back this time. Doesn't that mean all your previous work went to waste?" Zhuo Jingxi immediately perked up at the mention of her profession. She proudly pulled Qin Guang to the lab table and pointed to a dark brown glass bottle on the table. She said, "Actually, I only came back this time because I gave up my position as a lab director. But just a month ago, the project I was in charge of for the past 6 months produced results. This is it. The latest catalyst that has a miraculous effect on ester compounds. It can solve the problem of antibiotics in your pharmaceutical factory." Qin Guang carefully picked up the bottle and looked at the silvery liquid flowing slowly inside. Although the bottle was not big, it was very heavy in his hand. This thing was very dense. Judging from Zhuo Jingxi's tone, this was probably all of her hard work over the past 6 months. No wonder she returned in such a hurry. It turned out that she just happened to have a new photocatalyst that might be suitable for her. She wanted to help me. Qin Guang completely understood Zhuo Jingxi's feelings and couldn't help but feel emotional and grateful. She said it lightly, but she really gave up a lot of things, and it was also very heavy. Prince's laboratory was world famous. It was full of talented people and had a very high status internationally. Every position in the laboratory was extremely valuable. Even doctoral students who graduated from famous universities in the Ivy League would try their best to get in. Even if they could only get the opportunity to be an assistant at the bottom of the laboratory, people would cherish it very much, let alone a director-level researcher who was in charge of a laboratory. As long as she worked in Prince's laboratory until she was 40, by then, whether she continued to stay there or left, even if she was still a lab director, she would definitely be fought over by major scientific research institutions around the world. Even if she went to work in an enterprise, she would definitely be the most core kind of technical backbone. What she gave up was the opportunity to rise rapidly on the road of academia. What she gave up was a smooth road to life. Just because he encountered some difficulties in the country, she made such a resolute decision. With a woman like this, what more could he ask for? Qin Guang took a deep breath. I don't know how to say this. Anyway, thank you. Why are you thanking me? If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been able to go to the United States. Now that you're in trouble and I can help you, how can I turn a blind eye? By the way, do you understand photocatalysis now? Let me explain it to you. Qin Guang grinned. I know a thing or two. Are you kidding me? Although the old man's knowledge was crammed into him by the Holy Grail, in terms of theoretical knowledge, the person standing in front of you is the most authentic master in human history, okay? That's good, listen to me, Qin Guang interrupted Zhuo Jingxi and said, wait a minute, I have a question. As far as I know, foreign laboratories like this, including Prince's laboratory or the leading research institutes in the communications industry, such as Bell Laboratories or Qualcomm Laboratories, all have very strict confidentiality agreements. Teacher Zhuo, you entered Prince as a commissioned training staff from Gokyo University. Although you're now a C-level researcher, strictly speaking, you're completely employed by Prince. Your experimental costs all came from Prince, so you should also receive a salary there. So, your results should all belong to Prince's laboratory. After all, your status in academia is far from the level where you can be on an equal footing with the laboratory itself. Changjiang scholars like Professor Xu, and even our domestic academicians, don't seem to be qualified to discuss terms and conditions with Prince to share the results. At the very least, you have to be a Nobel Prize-level scholar, a world-renowned scholar, to be qualified to share the results with Prince. Didn't they say anything when you brought back the sample and synthesis technology that you just researched? Zhuo Jingxi's face was slightly stiff, but she quickly waved her hand and said, it's fine, our country is far away, they can't do anything about it. Teacher Zhuo, you snuck out, right? Zhuo Jingxi blushed. That's right, I pretended to take a leave of absence, saying that there was an urgent matter at home. I didn't really resign, but I don't plan on going back. Qin Guang said anxiously, but the saying that the emperor is far away is just a saying in the past. Now the world is so big, you can reach it in one flight. There's no place that's far away from the emperor. A mature photocatalyst formula represented a potential market of several billion US dollars. Prince would not give up easily. If the other party is just a small company with no influence, it doesn't matter. But as far as I know, although Prince's laboratory is not well known in the ears of ordinary people, it has cooperation with many consortia around the world, and it is also very influential in our country. You can run, but you can't run away. Something will happen. Zhuo Jingxi's face briefly showed a worried look, but she immediately said carelessly, it's fine, just wait for them to sue. This is just my personal behavior, and it is only used within the scope of Tongshan Industrial Plant. As long as I don't leak the formula to others, they will turn a blind eye. At worst, I will sign a compensation contract for them. Qin Guang shook his head. Money is a small matter, I can handle it. But if this is the case, how can you establish yourself in academia in the future? This is what I am worried about. Zhuo Jingxi didn't care. If I can't establish myself, then I won't. I also understand. In the future, when I return to Gokyo University, no matter how powerful Prince is, he can't control me as a non-staff member to be in charge of projects at Gokyo University, right? At worst, my results in the future will be under your name. You know me, I don't particularly care about these false names. Now that I have you, I don't lack money. I just want to do more things. You know what my ideal is? Being a big boss behind the scenes is much more meaningful than jumping out to attract attention. Qin Guang rolled his eyes. You must have watched too many melodramatic TV dramas. Didn't you see that those behind the scenes died miserably in the end? No, I can't let this happen to you. If it's yours, it must be yours. You can't let others take your name for what you did. That would be too unfair to you. But now that I am back, they have probably started the legal process. Every gram of the sample is recorded. They must have found out that I took so much. Zhuo Jingxi couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Qin Guang rolled his eyes, but he already had an idea. He wasn't in a hurry. Since Zhuo Jingxi had given up so much for him, then he would personally send her to the altar. Princess Photocatalyst Formula? Was it very powerful? I'm sorry, but I have an ancestor here. You say we stole your results? You want to sue us? You want to sue us? I'm sorry, but the truth is that your things aren't even worthy of carrying my shoes. I have 5 god-level formulas in my hands. They can be used at room temperature, can be exposed to sunlight, have super low wastage rate, super low synthesis cost, and have super stable adhesion properties. All I have to do is brush them on a shelf and throw them into water and they'll be effective. Anyone would scream in pain. Father, how can you be so awesome? When that time comes, you will realize that your formulas aren't even 1% of my standards. What right do you have to say that we stole your things? What a joke. Qin Guang had been worried about how he could use a more reasonable and less shocking method to take out the 5 photocatalyst formulas that transcended time. Now, Zhuo Jingxi was right there in front of him. With the formula in hand, he could subtly influence her thoughts into his ready-made formula. It was just like solving a problem. The teacher would first know the results and the process of solving the problem. Then he would turn it around and teach the students the problem. This way the students would have a much easier time. Teacher Zhuo, you used to be my tutor. Now it's my turn to teach you, my little Cici. Don't worry, let me take a look at your formula. Although Qin Guang was confident, he still planned to take a look first. Zhuo Jingxi did not understand what he was up to. She only handed him the booklet that she had brought with her. The booklet contained the specific physical and chemical properties, catalytic properties, and the specific synthesis method of the formula that she had brought back this time. You can really understand it? Don't you need me to tell you? There are a lot of technical terms in it. Zhuo Jingxi saw him pick it up and read it. She still didn't believe him. She stared at him with her beautiful eyes. Qin Guang just smiled mysteriously. You'll know later. Chapter 1045. She still did not believe it. Zhuo Jingxi did not understand why Qin Guang knew about photocatalysis. Although he had briefly stayed in the laboratory at Gokyo University for a few days, he did not have time to do anything serious before Wang Ren and Su Lijing's incident happened. He did not have time to learn about photocatalysis at all. Later on, she saw that he was busy every day as if he was fighting a war. With his personality, he would not spend time learning something that was meaningless to him. Furthermore, his experiment manual had not been systematically organized and simplified. It was all first-hand information that he had written while working in Prince's laboratory. Although it was detailed, it was not systematic and very messy. Furthermore, there were many professional terms that ordinary people would not be able to understand. Putting aside the fact that Qin Guang couldn't understand the long series of reaction equations and calculations in the manual, just those professional terms that ordinary people wouldn't even come into contact with once in their lifetime would probably make him feel like he was reading a book from heaven, right? However, seeing how confident Qin Guang was, Zhuo Jingxi did not want to attack him in front of Hua Ling and Zhongyu. The relationship between the two was not ordinary. With Zhuo Jingxi's meticulousness, she would take care of his reputation as a man when they were outside. Since he felt that he could read it, she would wait for him to read it for a while and explain it to him later. With this in mind, Zhuo Jingxi turned back to the experiment with Hua Ling and Zhongyu. From time to time she would look at Qin Guang, who was sitting there engrossed in his notes. Sometimes he frowned, sometimes he smiled, and sometimes he showed a knowing smile. It was a very approving look. He flipped through the book very quickly, almost turning a page in less than a minute. It could be said that he read 10 lines at a glance. Zhuo Jingxi thought to herself, I haven't seen him for half a year, and this guy's skin has become thicker. He's really good at pretending. I heard that he acted in a movie that hasn't been released yet. I used to think that he was acting for fun, but now it seems that he might really be a good actor. But as an actor, you're a little unprofessional. There are so many words on each page of my notes. Even if you're reading a novel, you can't read it so fast, right? What's more, you're reading my professional notes, which are at least 100 times more profound than a novel. With the speed at which you're flipping through the pages, are you going to use it as a fan? Teacher Zhuo, Qin Guang is really good at acting. If I didn't know him, I might have really believed him. Hua Ling moved closer to Zhuo Jingxi and teased her in a low voice. Zhongyu, on the other hand, had a different opinion. That's not necessarily true. When he first arrived at Tongshan factory a few days ago, didn't he also give us a fright? He does know a lot of water treatment techniques. At the very least, when he walked around the factory, the problems he picked out were no worse than when Teacher Shu first came. In fact, he might even be more detailed. Hua Ling came back to her senses and suddenly said, that seems to be the case. If he hasn't read the reports related to Tongshan factory before and can find all the problems by himself, then he seems to be really capable? Hualing was a little unsure. She felt that it wasn't right for her to always look at Qin Guang the way she used to, but she also felt that it was too unbelievable. Zhuo Jingxi interrupted the two of them. Let's not care about him for now. There are still 3 steps left. Let's hurry up. Soak the sample in the sodium chloride solution later. You must pay attention to the time. 9.5 hours, not a second more. Later lock the lab door and everyone go rest. After another half an hour, Qin Guang finally put down his notebook. He wasn't in a hurry to speak. Instead, he closed his eyes and thought about what he should say to Zhuo Jingxi. On the other side, Zhuo Jingxi and the other 2 were still busy preparing for the experiment. They didn't know that he had put down his book. Zhuo Jingxi had been on the plane for more than 10 hours. After getting off, she hadn't adjusted her biological clock. Although she could sleep on the plane, she couldn't sleep well. She was really a little sleepy. Her originally energetic eyes had become a little cloudy. She shook her head slightly from time to time, trying her best to stay awake. Seeing that she was still gritting her teeth and holding on, Qin Guang felt a little uncomfortable. On one hand, he felt sorry for Zhuo Jingxi's hard work. He thought that she had been in a similar state of work in the United States for the past 6 months. On the other hand, he felt sorry that her passion might be in vain. The formula she brought back was indeed the world's leading formula. It could greatly accelerate the hydrolysis process of ester macromolecular compounds. However, the antibiotics of Tongshan Industrial Factory were not ordinary esters. They were 16-membered macrolides. Because of its special molecular structure, the molecule contained a lactone structure and a 16-membered ring. The bond energy between atoms was relatively high, and the molecular structure was relatively stable. This caused the catalytic effect of the photocatalyst carrier brought back by Zhuo Jingxi to be greatly reduced. It was impossible for it to be industrialized. If he wanted it to be effective, ordinary sunlight was far from enough. He needed a large dose of X-ray radiation. However, he must also take into account the absorption rate of X-ray radiation in water. At the same time, this X-ray radiation was far beyond the human body's tolerance limit. The cost of the X-ray machine equipment of ultra-high light was one aspect. The operating cost of the ultra-high energy consumption was another. As an open production environment of the sewage treatment plant, it was impossible to take care of the safety of the operator. Even if they were wearing anti-radiation clothing, such a long period of X-ray exposure could cause great harm to nearby businesses and people. Just like every time ordinary people went to the hospital to take photos, the doctor would often ask the patient how long it was since the last photo was taken before writing the list. The number of X-rays that ordinary people could take in a year was limited. There was even a hard rule that there must be a number of days between consecutive X-rays. After all, industrial applications were not like laboratory conditions. The water volume was much larger, and the operating conditions could not be as closed as in the laboratory. At present, Zhuo Jingxi did not know about this situation. She was still full of confidence and wanted to verify the effect. However, based on the super rich and comprehensive basic knowledge that he had mastered, Qin Guang could come to this conclusion just by inferring in his mind. He even calculated the exact dose of X-ray. Based on this calculation, if he wanted to use the photocatalyst brought back by Zhuo Jingxi, he would have to build a new closed operation workshop for antibiotic wastewater. The construction cost was hundreds of millions, and the daily operating cost was more than $1 million. The total investment and cost was even higher than adding drugs. What's more, he could only solve one antibiotic wastewater. There were 4 other super difficult wastewater. It was meaningless. But how should he tell her? If he told Zhuo Jingxi the truth directly, would it be too much of a blow to her? After all, she also wanted to help him out of passion. While Qin Guang was distracted, Zhuo Jingxi's body staggered slightly. He did not know if she tripped or if she was too tired. Seeing this, Qin Guang quickly rushed out and hugged Zhuo Jingxi from behind. He decided, forget it. Let's not say anything and just directly pull her away from the laboratory. It would save him the trouble of thinking of ways to make her give up on this photocatalyst and not do such useless work. Alright, don't do it today. You just got off the plane and haven't adjusted your biological clock yet. Why are you risking your life in the laboratory? I'm not in such a hurry. Rest first. After saying that, Qin Guang did not wait for Zhuo Jingxi's consent. He carried her by the waist and left. Hey, Qin Guang. Put me down. Who wants to put you down? I told you to go rest. Senior Hualing, Senior Zhongyu, go rest early too. We'll talk about this tomorrow. Zhuo Jingxi struggled a little, but she was no match for Qin Guang. He hugged her tightly and carried her out of the laboratory before she could say anything. Wait a minute. Zhuo Jingxi hurriedly struggled to poke her head out. Hualing Zhongyu, don't listen to him. There's only one last step left. You must do it well. Don't oversleep tomorrow morning. Remember to go to the laboratory and take out the sample in time. When you leave later, remember to lock the door and put the bottle with the sample in the safe. As they spoke, the two of them walked further and further away, quickly disappearing without a trace. Only the two senior sisters were left in a daze. Hualing and Zhongyu looked at each other and shrugged helplessly. Hualing pouted. I told you these two are very ambiguous. Look at how teacher Zhuo pretended to struggle just now. In fact, she almost wanted to jump into his arms. Zhongyu patted her shoulder. Don't gossip about them behind their backs. It's their own business anyway. Anyway, as long as teacher Zhuo is happy, it's fine. Happy? Of course he's happy. How can he not be happy? Okay, let's continue working. On the other side, Qin Guang carried Zhuo Jingxi to the parking lot and put her in the front passenger seat. He sat down and said as he lit the fire, Teacher Zhuo, actually, the photo catalyst you brought back might not be useful. Zhuo Jingxi's face was full of confusion. She didn't think that Qin Guang understood her notes at all, and she couldn't understand why he said it was useless. Don't joke around. I've tested it many times in prints. It's more or less useful. You didn't understand my notes at all, did you? You're talking nonsense, right? Qin Guang shrugged helplessly. Forget it. You won't believe me even if I tell you. Anyway, have a good rest tonight. When the results come out tomorrow, you'll probably believe me. Chapter 1046. Can I have a good rest tonight? Sitting in the front passenger seat, Zhuo Jingxi was silent. She turned her head to look out the window and watched the trees on both sides of the road fly past. Inexplicably, because of Qin Guang's words, a myriad of thoughts ran through her mind. She was a little shy but also a little expectant, but she was indeed a little tired. She wanted to have a good rest, but she had other considerations. Although they hadn't seen each other for a long time since she was back and everyone had already broken through that layer of window paper, it would happen sooner or later. Everyone was an adult and they all had needs in that area. A long drought met a good rain, so there was nothing shameful or difficult to talk about. It was just that if the two of them were in love for a long time, there was no need to rush day and night. Reason told Zhuo Jingxi that the best choice tonight was definitely to have a good rest and adjust her biological clock, so that she could bring out the true perfect working state during the day tomorrow to help Qin Guang solve his problems. I understand all the logic, but I can't control myself. Emotionally, she really couldn't control herself. Just smelling the manly scent coming from his body, her mind was a little fuzzy, and the things that happened with him in her rented house were still vivid in her mind, repeatedly replaying. Then her heart began to beat faster, and her breathing became rapid. The devil deep in her lower abdomen was playing tricks, causing her to clamp her legs tightly, and a certain place was already faintly moist. What should I do later? Should we do something about it? If he takes the initiative to ask, I definitely can't resist and agree immediately. But if he feels that I'm too tired and a taciturn gourd, should I take the initiative to attack? But will he think that I've become too loose? Will I leave a bad impression in his heart? Also, if I really do something and can't sleep well tonight, it will definitely affect my working state tomorrow, right? Zhuo Jingxi really felt very conflicted, very tired, and completely unable to make up her mind. Qin Guang thought that she was asleep, so he didn't say anything else. As he drove, he couldn't help but think of other things. The huge debt of 1.46 billion inevitably made him feel an indescribable sense of urgency. He must immediately get 2 statues of One-Line Sky Realm to pay off the debt in time after 2 years. However, divine statues were not cabbages that could be found immediately. Therefore, there would definitely be a time lag in between. At that time, there would definitely be a gap of faith. If he wanted to survive, he had to think of a way to earn some extra income from other ideas. For example, in the next month, he could obtain a more reliable Heaven's Line Cup Intermediate Realm and build another god statue in time. Another example was to develop more zealots and use the additional faith provided by zealots to make up for the difference. Or perhaps he could open up a high-level world within a cup that was similar to the realm of the Transient Sea or the realm of True Martial, and obtain some additional faith value from it. However, there were too many variables in these matters, and he could only rely on the heavens to make a living. There was a great deal of randomness and it was not under his control. What was even crazier was that ever since he owed the debt, the Holy Grail had started to collect the debt on its own. Every day, at every moment, as soon as the faith points entered his account, he would immediately confiscate them and use them to make up for the debt. Now, the Holy Grail had become a transparent funnel. No matter how much faith points were poured in from the top, they would be instantly swallowed up by the bottom, ensuring that there would not be a single penny left in his pocket. If it was not for this super awkward situation, Qin could totally rely on the custom-made world within a cup to take a shortcut, and casually use a custom-made world within a cup that was especially easy to achieve. For example, he could first learn the third-order Rubik's Cube blind twisting in the special training cup intermediate realm, and then directly scam some of the more popular variety shows such as The Most Powerful Melon Seeds, Challenge the Impossible, Huaxia's Got Talent, or the original Central TV Guinness, and now the new show Huaxia's 5,000 Years of Ultimate Skills. At that time, with the astonishing hand speed of his Qilin arm and the special training ability of the world within a cup, he could directly compress the world record from nearly 20 seconds to less than 1 second. Coupled with the live broadcast of variety shows, he could achieve the effect of exploding people's eyes on the spot. Then, with crazy publicity and hype regardless of the cost, he would be able to create a spirit god statue in less than a month. Although the current upper limit of the spirit god statue's production capacity was only about 50,000 or so, no matter how small a mosquito's leg was, it was still meat. Many a little makes a mickle, and he would eventually be able to make up for the shortfall. Unfortunately, his heart was higher than the sky and his life was thinner than paper. He was full of ideals, but reality was too cruel. He lost as much faith points as he collected. Right now, he couldn't even enjoy the 600,000 beggar version of the Spirit God Custom Cup Intermediate Realm. The damned Holy Grail was even more shameless than the bank. At the very least, the bank collected a mortgage payment once a month, but the Holy Grail paid at all times. Because of this, other than setting up 2 Spirit God statues as soon as possible, whether or not Qin could survive depended on the heavens. It was purely a gamble with his life. A good face meant a good life, and a good life meant that he could live. But he couldn't just close his eyes and wait for death without putting in some effort, right? Forget it, he would do his best and leave it to the heavens. In short, he only had 730 days left. Every wasted day, the possibility of him successfully repaying the loan would be lower, and he would be one step closer to death. This was not a drill, nor was it a joke. Now that Teacher Zhuo was back, he had also set up a strategy to rely on Teacher Zhuo to more reasonably throw out the 5 god-level new photocatalyst formulas. But this matter must be done quickly. He didn't have much time to continue to waste time in Tangshan Industrial Factory. Although money was good and face was important, it was not as practical as faith points. Now that this situation had occurred, he couldn't care less about one thing and lose sight of the other. He had to distinguish between priorities. But Tangshan Industrial Factory's front line was still very long, and it couldn't be done overnight. Knowing the formula was one thing, putting the formula into practice and turning the data on paper into a real product was another. He had to find a way through Teacher Zhuo to contact reliable large laboratories at home and abroad to solve the problem of industrial production and application. Tangshan Industrial Factory was so large that the demand for photocatalysts was not small. It was impossible to produce a single milligram. However, the synthetic materials of photocatalysts were not only expensive, but also extremely difficult to obtain. Even if you waved a check, you might not be able to buy it. The equipment needed for synthesis were extremely high-end, representing the world's most advanced scientific research level. Money couldn't be used. Just like the world's first ion collider in China, advanced equipment represented monopolized scientific research resources. Even if a high school student was found to use this collider, he could sort out a set of data based on the observation results, and casually write a paper that could be published in an SCI journal. It was more useful than a PhD student writing a paper for half a year. Although Qin formula was ready-made and his theoretical knowledge was hundreds of years ahead of the world, the synthesis method was under the unspoken rules of the heavenly Holy Grail. It just happened to be stuck at the limit of the level of modern science and technology. It was the energy efficiency limit of the world's most advanced photocatalyst synthesis equipment. Unfortunately, this set of equipment was not in China. It happened to be in the world's first photocatalyst laboratory, Prince Laboratory, which Zhuo Jingxi had just defended. So far, Qin did not know about this situation. He was still immersed in his own troubles. Otherwise, it would only be more painful for him. How should I tell her, explain to her, make her believe in my formula, and immediately throw away the weak project results in her hands and turn to the implementation of my 5 god-level formulas? She doesn't even trust my basic level now. If I directly throw her 5 formulas, she must think that I am crazy and will not take it seriously at all, right? This was really the blissful trouble of a genius. His knowledge and ability were too far beyond this era. His realm and level were too far beyond his age, so it was too difficult to win people's trust in what he said and the ability he showed, especially this kind of knowledge. If he was an old man in his 60s or 70s and became an old master in the eyes of others, let alone taking out 5 photocatalyst formulas, even if he proposed a new theory today and pushed the theoretical level of contemporary quantum mechanics forward by 20 years, or if he came up with a new set of technology tomorrow and conquered the treatment of cancer or AIDS, others would not question too much. Even if there was controversy, at least others would not take it seriously. At most, they would question him and carry out scientific verification of his theory. As long as his knowledge and theory itself had no problems and could stand up to scrutiny and test, after others completed verification and practice, all doubts would slowly disappear. Science was not like politics, where what was right and what was wrong was wrong. It was much simpler. What should I say now? I can't hurt her self-esteem. It's a headache. After leaving the Tongshan industrial factory, the two people with their own thoughts went straight to the hotel without saying a word. The atmosphere was not awkward. It was just that they had something on their minds. After arriving, Zhuo Jingxi didn't let Qin Guang help her up. It's okay. I'm not that weak. I'm in good spirits. Zhuo Jingxi smiled and waved her hand, forcing herself to look energetic. She really didn't want to admit that she was pretending to be energetic so that Qin Guang wouldn't take pity on her and force her to sleep the moment they reached the hotel. Although she was conflicted, she really wanted something to happen. Her legs were getting weaker and her face was slowly getting redder. After taking 2 steps, Zhuo Jingxi staggered again and almost fell to the ground. Qin Guang supported her. How are you in good spirits? Forget it. I was going to talk to you tonight about why the photocatalyst you brought back didn't work, but it seems like there's no chance. When we get up, you should sleep first. We'll talk about everything tomorrow. Qin Guang sighed in his heart. Although he was really in a hurry and didn't want to waste a day, it seemed that there was no other way. He couldn't be too selfish. Teacher Zhuo was too tired. She had to rest. Chapter 1047. Let's wait a day. When her biological clock returns tomorrow, we'll think of a way to have a good discussion with her. With the knowledge I have, it won't be too difficult to convince her. At that time, I can't care even if I scare her. I have to tell her tomorrow at the latest. Teacher Zhuo has to push this matter forward by the day after tomorrow. As for the potential threat of Prince and how to push this matter forward, I'll discuss it with Teacher Zhuo tomorrow. When Zhuo Jingxi heard this, she became anxious. Don't go too far. I'm clearly so moved that my body is weak. From your tone, it sounds like you're going to do something worse than an animal, right? Do you really want the two of us to be in the same room and waste the night away without anything happening? Do you know how much I want something to happen? Do you know how hard it is for me to be alone in America for such a long time? You actually want me to sleep first and talk about it tomorrow? You just want me to have a good night's sleep so that I can continue experimenting for you tomorrow, right? I came back from so far away. Although my main purpose is to help you, and doing experiments is also my favorite job, I'm also a normal woman. I have normal physiological needs, okay? You don't understand my feelings and needs at all. You're so selfish. Is money that important? Can't I even wait for a day? So what if I'm lazy for a day? You're still saying that the things I brought back aren't good enough? Not only are you selfish, but you're also looking down on my results. When a woman is angry, she is unreasonable. Zhuo Jingxi's thoughts completely went into a dead end. She no longer thought about having a good rest today and getting up early tomorrow to push forward with the experiment. It was rare for her to throw a little girl's temper. She broke free from Qin Guang's hand. How am I tired? Which eye of yours saw that I'm tired? I just accidentally tripped on a rock. You're so annoying. She really felt wronged. She took 2 steps forward. Qin Guang followed behind her, but he couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. Why was she suddenly angry? He could only follow her carefully, planning to act according to the situation. Zhuo Jingxi took a few steps forward and calmed down a little. Why am I so inexplicably angry? Isn't Qin Guang doing this for my own good? He's afraid that I'm too tired. Why should I be mad at him? Zhuo Jingxi, have you been lonely and cold for too long after tasting the good stuff? Why was she so flirtatious? He only knew that his mind was filled with wretched thoughts. You are such a disgrace. Qin Guang gently hugged her from behind again. This time Qin Guang learned his lesson. He didn't say that she was tired, nor did he mention anything about resting. He just hugged her intimately and brought her up. Qin Guang's original intention was, of course, to prevent Zhuo Jingxi from falling again. He never thought that Zhuo Jingxi would have another meaning. He took the initiative to hug my waist. He hugged me so tightly in front of everyone. I felt as though I was about to be pulled into his body. Oh my God. He knows what's going on in my head. So embarrassing, so shameful. However, I couldn't help but look forward to it. What should I do? I was supposed to have a good rest. Why did my mind go out of control for no reason? Zhuojingxi, oh Zhuojingxi, with your work attitude, you're not thinking about proper matters. You're forcing him to satisfy your most basic needs, and you're even throwing a little tantrum at him. Are you worthy of stealing the sample from Prince and flying back overnight? As the two of them walked into the elevator, Qin Guang turned his head and saw that Zhuojingxi's face had turned bright red. It wasn't just a normal red, it was the kind of red that looked like a burning flame. It was a very sick and serious situation. Qin Guang immediately knew that something was wrong. He asked nervously, Teacher Zhuo, why is your face so red? It's a little hot? Do you have a fever? Unexpectedly, as he tightened his grip, Zhuojingxi suddenly stiffened. Her body became even softer, and she was almost completely stuck to Qin Guang's body. She couldn't even stand up straight. She thought to herself, this guy is getting more and more daring. He actually asked me if I was in heat? Although there was no one else in the elevator, how could you ask me such a question? How do you want me to answer you? Qin Guang saw that not only did she not say anything, but her face became even redder and her body became soft like a boneless windshield wiper. Therefore, his right hand tightened, and his left hand reached for Zhuojingxi's forehead. It's really hot. You really have a fever? Qin Guang exclaimed, and then he simply picked up Zhuojingxi by the waist. Zhuojingxi was about to break down. She simply yelled at the top of her lungs, Yes, that's right. I'm in heat. But so what? After saying that, she stopped struggling and simply buried her head in Qin Guang's chest. She was really embarrassed. Although there were no outsiders in the elevator, and the hotel security wouldn't be so bored as to eavesdrop on the conversation in the elevator, it was a little too stimulating for her to admit such an embarrassing thing. But as embarrassed as she was, this feeling was really special and exciting. As soon as she said such shameless words, her cerebral cortex seemed to have been greatly stimulated. A numb feeling arose spontaneously, and her rationality was constantly being impacted. The throbbing feeling in her lower abdomen became more and more intense. I really want it. Qin Guang has become so naughty now. He knows that it's embarrassing, but he deliberately asked me this. I haven't seen him for half a year. Where did he learn such a shameless method of teasing people from? I'm also very shameless to actually cooperate with him. But forget it, this is also good. Anyway, I can't kill the little worm in my heart. I don't need to sleep tonight in this state. I'll just do what I need to do first. Since Hualing and Zhong you will take care of tomorrow morning, I can accompany him to play a little crazier tonight. Tomorrow morning I'll sleep in, and in the afternoon, I'll work with a full state of mind. Play a little crazier. Thinking of this, Zhuojingxi became even more embarrassed. She suddenly clamped her legs together and began to tremble violently as if she had lost consciousness. This scared the hell out of Qin Guang. Oh my God. Why are you trembling so badly? Teacher Zhuo, your condition is getting a little out of control. He quickly mobilized his inner strength to transfer qi to Zhuojingxi, trying to stabilize Zhuojingxi's condition. Although he wasn't good at medicine, it wasn't the first time that he had used his inner strength to help people take care of their bodies. He had a lot of experience and was very familiar with it. A warm current gushed out from the palm of Qin Guang's right hand that was holding Zhuojingxi and went straight to Zhuojingxi's abdomen. According to Qin Guang's plan, he would first use his own inner strength to protect her heart and brain to prevent her from having a fever. But when Qin Guang's inner strength entered Zhuojingxi's body, Zhuojingxi felt this warm current go straight to her lower abdomen. She didn't know what was going on, but she only felt that this warm current was like a naughty earthworm. Wherever it went, it would itch uncontrollably. This was great. Her lower abdomen was originally twitching, but after the external stimulation, it twitched even more violently. Her body was shaking like a sieve. Qin Guang's soul was about to fly out of his body. I really saw a ghost. Not only did the inner strength not help, but it also made Teacher Zhuo tremble even more. The elevator was still going up. Qin Guang stretched out his right hand and pulled Zhuojingxi's head up slightly. He then tilted his head to look from the side. It's over. Teacher Zhuo's eyes were rolling back from the fever. Was she going to be cooked? The elevator from the ground floor to the 8th floor seemed to take a century. When the elevator door opened, Qin Guang rushed forward like lightning with Zhuojingxi in his arms, straight to his room door. He was really panicking. He had to settle Zhuojingxi, who had a serious fever, as soon as possible. First, he would try to see if he could lower her temperature physically. He would first observe her for half an hour, and if that didn't work, he would send her to the hospital. If the hospital couldn't handle her illness, then he would quickly call the real professional, Wu Miaoan, for help. At this time, Wu Miaoan, as the deputy director of the Guangdong General Administration, should be in Wujing. If they drove a car or found a helicopter from Wujing, they should be able to arrive within an hour. Chapter 1048. Zhuo Jingxi's brain was about to crash. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Before today, she would never have thought that she was such a woman. In the 20 years before she gave her body to Qin Guang, she had no idea what was going on between a man and a woman. Even when she had sex for the first time, she didn't have any clear memories. She only remembered that Qin Guang came in and it was a little painful. Then, she instantly rolled her eyes and lost consciousness. Although the time was really short, in that instant she felt as if she had ascended to the clouds and become the happiest woman in the world. Later, Zhuo Jingxi would think about it from time to time. She knew that her situation might not be right, but she didn't have any close friends to discuss such a private topic. She didn't have much time to think about it all day long, but she would occasionally think about it. Gradually, she almost thought that her situation was the situation of a normal woman. Perhaps this was how other people's lives were like. Women really suffered. Time was really short. Forget it. Although there was a bit of a disadvantage in time, in that instant her head floated up to the sky. It was like the dizziness after drinking half a liter of wine. Her whole body was lazy and a certain part of her body was throbbing. It was really comfortable and memorable. There's definitely nothing wrong with me. As for now, although she was so shy that she wanted to die, her heart was exceptionally sweet. Qin Guang finally couldn't wait anymore. I thought you really had a heart of stone. You ran so fast you must be in a hurry, right? Qin Guang carried Zhuo Jingxi straight into the bedroom, and then Zhuo Jingxi was carefully and neatly placed on the bed. Zhuo Jingxi's heart beat faster and faster. She subconsciously clamped her legs together tightly. Her casual pants were already soaked. Although she was looking forward to what was going to happen next, she couldn't get rid of the modesty in the depths of a woman's heart. She was really embarrassed to let Qin Guang see her current unruly look. She even secretly prayed in her heart that he wouldn't find out. Fortunately, she was wearing brown pants today. It shouldn't be so obvious, right? It shouldn't be that big, right? The more Zhuo Jingxi thought about it, the redder her face became. Not only was her forehead hot, even her cheeks and neck were burning hot. As soon as Qin Guang put her down, he reached out to touch her head. Crack. It's scary. It must be at least 50 degrees, right? Are they about to spontaneously combust? In the past, before I practiced inner strength, before I strengthened myself in the instantaneous sea, I also had a fever, but I never had a fever like this. I've seen people with fever before, but if it's this high, they probably don't even need to call 120. They should just call the crematorium. He didn't even need to light a fire to bring it to the crematorium. He just needed to throw it into the kiln and it would burn on its own. Qin Guang was a little flustered. On the other side, Zhuo Jingxi was being patted on the head, but she was so shy that she closed her eyes tightly, not daring to open them. Where did this guy learn such a bad habit? Does he have to touch his forehead before doing foreplay? On the other hand, Qin Guang didn't know what was going on. He stretched out his finger and lifted Zhuo Jingxi's eyelids. Zhuo Jingxi was shocked. Why was this guy so mischievous? Was he trying to embarrass her to death? Did he want me to look at him? Would it be more pleasurable this way? I'm not going to look. Zhuo Jingxi mischievously rolled her eyeballs upwards. Qin Guang was so scared that he peed his pants. He actually didn't have any eyeballs. He was going to roll his eyes up to the sky. She had already completely lost consciousness. He didn't care about being careful anymore. He stretched out both hands and activated his inner strength. His fingertips picked up the buttons on Zhuo Jingxi's clothes. Only a series of popping sounds could be heard as the buttons flew off one by one. Then he used both hands to pull out Zhuo Jingxi's sleeves. Immediately after, he bent down and supported Zhuo Jingxi's back with his right hand. His left hand tugged underneath and the jacket was thrown off the bed. Zhuo Jingxi's eyes were still tightly shut. She thought to herself, this guy is still the same as before. Even his foreplay is so rough. However, I like it a lot. After I'm done, I'll have a good sleep first. I'll come back and work for you. It's only right for you to work a little harder and serve me more comfortably. As for this brat's problem, how should I solve it? That depends on my mood. As Zhuo Jingxi's thoughts ran wild, Qin Guang had already done the same thing to her shirt as before. All the buttons popped off and the shirt was thrown out. Most of her skin was exposed to the air. Even though the room wasn't cold, her skin seemed to feel Chen Guang's gaze. Zhuo Jingxi suddenly had goosebumps all over her body. Other than that, the redness on her body spread rapidly from her neck down. In an instant, her entire body began to emit a faint pink glow. Chen Guang kept feeling that something was wrong. He started to wonder if he was overthinking something. With his world-class acting skills, if he were to calm down and make a careful judgment, he would naturally be able to see clues from Zhuo Jingxi's micro-expressions and movements. Then he would realize that she was flirting and not having a high fever. But right now, his first impression was the strongest. He blamed himself and Zhuo Jingxi for being standard Sichuan province people. When they communicated with others in Mandarin, it was still standard. However, when they bumped into someone who was also from Sichuan province, they couldn't distinguish the burning tongue from the flirting tongue. Right now, his mind was filled with worry for Zhuo Jingxi's health. His train of thought was stuck in a dead end. No matter how he thought about it, all he could think of was to save the dying and heal the injured. Not good at all. She's burning to the point where she's glowing. If I wait any longer, won't there be smoke and fire? The old man had roamed the world for more than 20 years. He had been in the cup world for more than 100,000 years. He boasted that he was knowledgeable, and well-versed in martial arts. He was fully deserving of the title of the world's #1 martial artist. However, this old man has never seen or heard of a situation where a person has a fever to the point of glowing. I can't delay any longer. If I delay any longer, I'm afraid that even with my inner strength, I won't be able to save Teacher Zhuo's life. Chen Guang's right hand trembled. His movements were even simpler and more violent. Inner strength surged from his fingertips. He controlled it to the pinnacle and slashed across Teacher Zhuo's chest like a blade. With a click, the last bit of cover on Teacher Zhuo's upper body was removed. Chen Guang was not in the mood to enjoy the long-awaited victory. He immediately changed his target and attacked the lower body. He unbuckled his belt, loosened the button, and pulled down the zipper. Then he retreated and sat beside Zhuo Jingxi. He planned to take advantage of the situation and complete the final preparations for lowering the temperature. But after he stretched out his hand, it froze in mid-air. He was greatly stimulated on the spot. That's right, Zhuo Jingxi had completely lost consciousness. But, my seventh uncle, my Emperor of the Azure. Oh my God. What did I see? Why is this happening? For a long time, on Chen Guang's side, although Zhuo Jingxi had not been a class counselor for a long time, in everyone's hearts, she was the typical representative of a dignified and skilled mature woman. Even though the relationship between her and Chen Guang had long been extraordinary, not long after something happened between the two of them, she chose to leave for the United States. Now that half a year had passed, Chen Guang had experienced a lot. His impression of Zhuo Jingxi had unknowingly returned to the time in her office. She had looked at him with a scrutinizing gaze. She had lamented his misfortune and was angry at his lack of ambition. Of course, there was also her gentleness and consideration when she changed the medicine on his hand and bandaged his wound. In addition, there was her stubbornness and staunchness when she was threatened by Wang Ren. There was also her enthusiasm when she introduced the great invention of photocatalysis to him in the photocatalyst laboratory at Gokyo University. There was also her boldness and competence when she bravely and loudly spoke about her life's ideals. The impression between people, other than the most superficial appearance, was more of the various things they had experienced together, every word they had said together, every time they looked at each other, every time they had been together, every time they had been together. These were all accumulated bit by bit. You have such a high and mighty image in my heart, but now you've actually wet your pants. I almost think I'm blind. Chen Guang stared blankly at Zhuo Jingxi's tightly clamped legs. The middle of her brown casual pants was clearly a dark brown that had been soaked through by water. Chen Guang took a deep breath and couldn't help but blame himself. How badly did I hurt you? At that moment there was only one thought in Teacher Zhuo's mind, and that was to die. Apart from wanting to die, there was no other plan. In the end, this guy still saw it. Not only that, but he even seemed to enjoy my current state of being in a living hell. He must be staring at the soaked part of me. You bastard, don't go too far. Admit it honestly. How many times have you played SM with who in the past 6 months? Why are you so experienced? No matter how difficult it is for me, how embarrassed I am, how you do it. But it seems that I'm really becoming more and more perverted. I clearly know that he's torturing me and deliberately embarrassing me. I clearly want to jump up and strangle him, but I'm enjoying it more and more. He didn't even make a move. Just the foreplay and the look in his eyes are enough to make me unable to extricate myself. This guy has really become a terrifying old driver. Too powerful, too terrifying. I'm so wet, he must think that I'm about to ascend to the heavens, right? Forget it, I'll accept my fate. Anyway, I'll be under his control for the rest of my life. I shouldn't have become a counselor in the environmental sciences class. This is all fate. If he really starts to take action later, will I still be able to live? Zhuojingxi's mind was completely unrestrained. She began to fantasize all kinds of crazy scenes. Although she was busy in America and alone in a foreign land for the past 6 months, she had watched some kind of European and American educational videos more than once in her dreams. As everyone knew, the European and American colleagues had a much heavier taste than the Japanese teachers in this aspect. Although Zhuojingxi hadn't seen much, every scene left a deep impression in her mind. Now, the scenes flashed in her mind like a movie, but the male and female protagonists were replaced by Qin Guang and herself, which made her even more excited. All of this seemed to take a long time, but it only took a few seconds. Qin Guang didn't move for a long time, but Zhuojingxi shuddered violently again. Incontinence again. Qin Guang, who was shocked out of his wits, woke up with a start. He didn't dare to drag it any longer. He bent down, reached up with both hands and pulled it down with force. With a slurp, the casual pants with the underwear inside slid down Zhuojingxi's smooth skin. Hearing the sound of the belt buckle hitting the wooden floor in the distance, Zhuojingxi's body tightened and she curled up. It's coming, it's finally coming. So excited, so nervous. Chapter 1049. Unexpectedly, Qin Guang moved closer to her ear and said loudly, "Teacher Zhua, I don't know if you can hear me right now, but don't worry, I'll find a way to cure you. I'll go get a cold towel to ice you, then I'll ask the hotel's front desk for a thermometer." Zhuojingxi's eyes flew open with a blank look on her face. What are you talking about? Qin Guang saw that she had woken up and was overjoyed. "Teacher Zhua, you're awake. Thank God. That's great, that's great. Listen to me, your fever is really terrifying. I've never seen anyone burn up like this. Forget it, I'll call Wu Miaowan and ask her to come down quickly. Do you still remember Wu Miaowan? Her medical skills are amazing. As long as she's here, even the most serious of illnesses can be stabilized. Don't panic, I'll definitely save your life. I swear." After Qin Guang finished speaking, he didn't wait for Zhuojingxi to reply. He turned around and ran to the washroom. As he prepared the cold towel, he fumbled for his phone. 10 seconds later, Qin Guang wrung the towel dry at lightning speed and rushed back. He first placed the cold, wet towel on Zhuojingxi's forehead, then took out his phone and prepared to call Wu Miaowan. At the same time, he looked anxious and concerned. He gave Zhuojingxi, who was looking at him in a daze, a meaningful glance and said, "Teacher Zhua, please wait a little longer. I'll get Wu Miaowan to send a helicopter from the headquarters. It'll definitely arrive in an hour or half an hour." Zhuojingxi, whose mind had almost completely crashed, finally reacted. "I'm really the one who broke into your house. After all this time, the fever you mentioned was a fever, not a fever." The scenes from when she got off the car until now flashed across Zhuojingxi's mind at lightning speed. All of Qin Guang's behavior corresponded with the fever he mentioned. No wonder this guy is acting so weird. Does he think I'm having a high fever? What the hell is going on in my head? How could his S&M routine be so natural? After all this time, what I think is east and what you think is west. In that instant, Zhuojingxi understood that she had really bumped into the heavens this time. She wanted nothing more than to smash Qin Guang's head to death, but she also wanted nothing more than to smash her own head into the wall and kill herself. Seeing that Qin Guang had already pressed the dial button, Zhuojingxi was startled awake. No, she definitely couldn't let him make the call, or else this would be a huge joke. She didn't care that she was naked and jumped up from the bed. "Don't call. I don't have a fever. Stop messing around." She roared as she pounced, her right hand grabbing the phone in Qin Guang's hand. She snatched the phone over at lightning speed and hung up before the call connected. Qin Guang looked confused. "Didn't you just say that you had a fever?" Zhuojingxi really wanted to throw this guy's phone out the window. "Yes. I said I was horny. But when I say coquettish, I mean coquettish. Not that firestick of yours. Listen to me again, I'll say it. I'm horny. Horny." Zhuojingxi threw caution to the wind and dragged out her voice. Qin Guang's head was full of question marks. No matter how dense he was, he should have woken up by now. Just like Zhuojingxi's mental journey, he quickly went over the situation from when he got off the car until now. She thought I had a fever as horny. In other words, in the elevator just now, she admitted that she was horny? What the F***ck? This is so F***king awkward. Teacher Zhuo, why are you so tough? I was a little caught off guard. Is American culture so strong? After squatting in the lab for half a year, Teacher Zhuo, you've been reborn? Is the air in America poisonous? Zhuo Jingxi sat cross-legged in front of Qin Guang, naked, while Qin Guang sat sideways across from her. The two of them stared at each other, dumbfounded. The scene was extremely strange. It was as if two big countries were fighting for oil fields with all their might, fighting to the death. In the end, they discovered that the reserves inside were not even enough to supply an oil lamp. It was as exaggerated as the time when two countries were fighting for oil fields. The flush on Zhuo Jingxi's body gradually faded. Although she was still naked, she couldn't care less about her embarrassment. At that moment, Qin Guang's phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was a call from Wu Miaowan, who had just flashed away. Under such a special situation, Qin Guang didn't know whether Wu Miaowan was calling to save the day or to ruin it. He clutched his phone and didn't want to answer. However, Wu Miaowan thought that he had some important business to attend to, or perhaps it was for some other purpose, so she had to get through. Her cell phone kept ringing. In this spacious room that seemed to be charming and a little awkward, it was unbearable, like a talisman that hastened her death. Why don't you just pick up? The moment I hung up, it seemed to have gone through for a moment. Zhuo Jingxi mustered up her courage and said. Qin Guang nodded stiffly, then answered the call. Hi. Wu Miaowan's anxious voice came from the other side of the phone. What's wrong? Why are you calling me so late at night? Are you in some kind of emergency? Don't worry, I'll fly down with everyone. Qin Guang quickly calmed her down. What kind of joke was this? With his and Zhuo Jingxi's situation today, it was already extremely awkward for Wu Miaowan to come down alone. If the entire Guangding General Headquarters were to come down and watch the most awkward foreplay in history between the ex-director and his teacher's lover, wouldn't they? I'll become the leader of the world of awkward foreplay. I'll become an international joke that goes down in history. Don't. It's nothing. I have someone here whining. No, it's a fever. Wu Miaowan, who was on the other side, relaxed a little. You scared me. It's rare for you to call me, and it's so late at night. You're already the strongest person in the world now, so I was really afraid of a situation that even you couldn't handle. I thought everyone's lives would be lost. In the end, it's just a fever. What a big deal. Qin Guang only chuckled foolishly. He really didn't know how to explain it to Wu Miaowan. Hey, that's not right. You're in Tongshan City, right? Isn't there a hospital there? It's just a normal fever. You don't have to call me. Is it serious? Forget it, I'll just come down. I'll find a fast train. Wait for me for 40 minutes. Qin Guang said anxiously. Don't. No need. It's not that serious. The fever's going down soon. As he said that, he looked at Zhuo Jingxi with an exceptionally stiff expression. This time he finally reacted. Teacher Zhuo was sitting cross-legged with his legs spread apart. At a glance, the scene of him toppling from top to bottom was extremely beautiful. Zhuo Jingxi felt something when Qin Guang's gaze swept over her. He said that the fever was going down, but he immediately started whining again. The fever's gone down? Is that it? You're so jumpy. Then it's fine? Qin Guang snorted. Yes. It's fine. Wu Miaowan hung up the phone suspiciously and muttered to herself, You're so sneaky. Do you think I don't know that you're with Teacher Zhuo today? Old pervert. Bad. Qin Guang threw his phone away and let out a long sigh of relief. It's fine. I managed to fool him. On the other side, Zhuo Jingxi finally could not take it anymore and slowly hugged him. Although there were a few twists and turns tonight, it was already like this. He couldn't just do nothing, right? Although the process was a little complicated, all roads lead to Rome. He would get things done quickly and then go to sleep peacefully. I won't let you off tonight. I'll torture you to death and piss you off. No matter how much you beg me later, I'll lie down and pretend to sleep. I'm going to take revenge on you for torturing me to death by accident. No, I'm busy. I'm very busy right now. Qin Guang, you've made me, your teacher, angry. I haven't quit my whining at all. I'm very seriously whining now. Qin Guang glared. Then Zhuo Jingxi flipped him over and pressed him down on the bed. American culture is harmful. I've been counterattacked again. In the end, Qin Guang's mind still hadn't reacted when he was stripped naked as well. What happened to having a good rest in the hotel? Why did it turn out like this? This is completely different from what I expected. Aren't you tired, Teacher Zhuo? Have you forgotten about the 3-second girl by Daming Lake? Why are you so arrogant? Do you think you can compete with the old man's invincible iron spear? You obviously couldn't even withstand a single blow. As Qin Guang was thinking about this, Zhuo Jingxi, who was sitting on him, suddenly bent down. The invincible pile driver immediately ignited and madly struck the muddy wetland at an extremely high frequency, completely out of control. 3 seconds? Maybe only 2 seconds. Zhuojingxi twitched violently. Then her eyes rolled back and she slowly went limp. Under Qin Guang's stunned gaze, she directly fell to her side. The next moment, she lay down next to him with her back facing him, motionless. Qin Guang sat up straight and looked at Zhuojingxi's smooth and crystal clear back. He didn't know if she was doing it on purpose, or if she was really too tired and fell into a deep sleep. This teacher Zhuo, you can't do this, right? How can you just kill and not bury? You're satisfied, but you can't leave me hanging in the air, can you? Can't you at least give me a little bit of hope to live on? Qin Guang anxiously poked his head out, wanting to see what was going on with Zhuojingxi. If she really lost consciousness from exhaustion like last time, then there was nothing he could do. He could only blame it on his bad luck. In any case, the pile driver and his old opponent, Qilin Arm, were evenly matched. At worst, he could just rely on himself again. It was a bit hard for him, but he still had to be more protective of teacher Zhuo. If she was pretending to be asleep, then it was time to have a good talk. He leaned over and looked into Zhuojingxi's eyes for a long time, but he couldn't see anything. Although Zhuojingxi had deliberately wanted to be mischievous before, she had completely lost her soul now. She was really unconscious, not pretending. Even with Qin Guang's acting skills, he couldn't find anything wrong with it. He sighed. What else could he do? He would just have to do it himself. Blaming the heavens and others wouldn't change his fate. He had boarded the pirate ship of the Holy Grail and unfortunately became the strongest pile driver in history. He was destined to become a weirdo in human history, with endless happiness and worries. I can satisfy everyone, but no one can satisfy me. No, there was one, but Miss Wenwen's train of thought was very strange. If she didn't bring it up herself, Qin Guang wouldn't dare to take the initiative to ask for it. She said that she would pay a high overnight fee, but there was no sign of it until now. His dream of being the world's most expensive duck king couldn't be fulfilled. Maybe one day when he was walking on the street, Miss Wen would suddenly rush out of the woods and drag him into the woods to have a 300 round of sex. Or maybe he would wait for her to pamper him for a few months, but there would be no sign of her. Miss Wen had always done things in an unusual way, and no one could figure out her pattern of action. Qin Guang complained in his heart as he sat beside Zhuojingxi and used his Qilin arm to save himself. A great beauty was sleeping on her side on the bed, motionless, while the young man next to her could only sit cross-legged and pray for his own luck. The scene was really beautiful. If one didn't look at it, it would only make one sigh, and those who heard it would feel sad and those who saw it would cry. However, after more than half an hour, Qin Guang felt that his little brother was about to ignite. It was about time to start a forest fire by drilling wood, but there was still no movement. Today's situation was too special, and the way it was going was too strange. It seriously affected his state of mind, and his emotions were very bad. His little brother was quite uncooperative, and he was almost beaten black and blue, but he still refused to vomit blood. Qin Guang couldn't lay his hands on Zhuojingxi, and he was afraid that he would disturb her rest, so he simply gave up and fell on his back. Looking at his invincible iron spear, he sighed faintly and said, "Sigh, I'm so miserable." In fact, Zhuojingxi had already woken up a few minutes earlier. She heard the sound coming from behind her and she could guess what Qin Guang was doing even with her toes. She really spent a lot of effort to control herself and not laugh out loud. You stupid brat, you made me embarrassed. I want to teach you a lesson. Do you think I will sympathize with you? Dream on. Zhuojingxi quietly covered her mouth, afraid that she would let the cat out of the bag. She was so happy at his misfortune that she didn't want others to know. She was determined to teach this guy a lesson. He tormented her and teased her. The most infuriating thing was that he obviously didn't know anything, but he dared to say that the formula she stole from Prince was useless. Then according to what you said, why did I take such a huge risk to rush back? Just for a few seconds of physical need? Although it was very comfortable, I, Teacher Zhuo, am also a person with a lot of goals in life. But even if there were thousands of knots in her heart that couldn't be untied, when Qin Guang finally gave up and laid down, sighing, Zhuojingxi's heart instantly softened. This guy, he was clearly about to break down, but he still didn't want to disturb me. Although he was a bit mischievous and disobedient and also a playboy, he was actually really gentle. Zhuojingxi wanted to forgive him, but she felt unwilling. It was really hard on her and he was letting her off too easily. Most importantly, she hadn't even calmed down yet, and if she let him have his way, this brat still didn't know how to appreciate and appreciate. This won't do, I have to talk to him. He said before that he would tell me tonight why my formula wasn't good, so now I have to get to the bottom of it. Otherwise, don't think that I'll let you off easy again. Anyway, I'm completely satisfied now. My heart is as still as water, like a nun. So, Zhuo Jingxi suddenly got up and flipped over. She tilted her head and stared at Qin Guang with her beautiful eyes. Qin Guang was overjoyed. Teacher Zhuo, you're awake. Let's continue? Zhuo Jingxi pushed him fiercely. Wait a minute. Don't even think about being impatient, you brat. I have something to say. Qin Guang chuckled and said, no need, let's talk next time. I'm busy right now. Zhuo Jingxi, however, steeled her heart and deliberately put on a straight face. You better put on a proper attitude for this teacher. Other than being confused, Qin Guang was at a loss, but seeing that she looked very serious, he really didn't dare to act rashly. He could only pinch his nose and continue to struggle. Little Cece, what's the matter? This call of Little Cece went straight to Zhuo Jingxi's heart. She almost had goosebumps all over her body. It took a lot of effort for her to calm herself down. Don't be so glib-tongued. Let me ask you, on what basis do you say that my photocatalyst formula is useless? You have to give me a reasonable explanation. You're denying the hard work that I've put in for half a year. Do you know that my formula has the highest evaluation in Prince's laboratory? If you don't give me a reason, don't even think about touching me tonight. Qin Guang almost collapsed on his back. Teacher Zhuo, your brain circuit is a bit too elegant. What kind of situation is this? The two of us have a long night, a man and a woman facing each other naked, and you're deliberately throwing a tantrum. Is this something you care about? Your godly twist is too fierce. My waist is about to break because of you. What's wrong with this world? Did I open it the wrong way? Chapter 1050. The two of them stared at each other, and it was as if time had frozen. Qin Guang was quite touched. According to his original plan, he was going to have a good talk with Zhuo Jingxi tonight. But then he changed his mind again and again, and the relationship between the two of them developed like this. Now he had completely given up on that idea. He only planned to put off any big things until tomorrow. But after going around in a big circle, he actually came back to Teacher Zhuo. Qin Guang really did not expect that. He wanted to struggle again, but Zhuo Jingxi had already sat up and was staring at him with a pair of beautiful eyes. Qin Guang became serious. Using his acting skills as a master, he thoroughly analyzed Teacher Zhuo's micro-expressions at this time. The conclusion he came up with really made his balls hurt. Teacher Zhuo was serious. She really was not joking with him. There was no other way. Although it was very deceptive for the sake of tonight's sexual bliss, for the sake of Teacher Zhuo's mood, he had to endure it first. Slow work produces fine work, and good food is not afraid of late. The old man was going to go all out. Qin Guang let out a long sigh. I really, Zhuo Jingxi glared at him. Don't say anything else. Just tell me why. What? I don't want to listen to your flowery words right now. Qin Guang also sat up, shrugged and rolled his eyes. Okay, I got it. I haven't acted shamelessly yet, have I? Come, little Cece, calm down a bit. Let's talk slowly. As he said that, he reached out and tried to hug Zhuo Jingxi's waist again. In the end, she slapped his palm. Don't touch me. Do you think I don't know about your sneaky tricks? You have magic on your hand. If I let you touch me too much, I won't be able to control myself. I'm not that stupid. Qin Guang's hand froze in midair. He thought to himself, Teacher Zhuo, what you said is very reasonable. I do have this plan, but don't you think that if the two of us are sitting naked facing each other, we should be the first to lose control of ourselves? However, the human heart was always a complicated thing. At this time, Zhuo Jingxi's mind was filled with photocatalysis. In addition, this was not the first time she had a relationship with Qin Guang, so she was completely satisfied. Her state of mind was as transcendent as a Buddha in her heart. She was not shaken by the physical appearance of the two of them at this time. Unable to come to an agreement, Qin Guang reluctantly stood up and turned on the central air conditioner in the room. Then he sat on the chair and rummaged through Zhuo Jingxi's backpack. Zhuo Jingxi sat on the bed and looked at his actions with a puzzled expression. She was slightly shaken, wondering if she had gone too far. He was a little selfish. This kid couldn't be angry, right? Why is he going through my bag? Qin Guang, what are you doing? Zhuo Jingxi tried hard to control her expression. It was indescribably complicated. On the other side, Qin Guang had already found a notebook and pen. When he heard this, he raised the notebook and waved it. Here, didn't you want me to tell you why? In a moment, I may have to list a lot of calculation and reaction equations. I was afraid that you wouldn't understand, so I found a pen and paper to write it down. Look at me while I explain it to you so it'll be easier for you to understand. Zhuo Jingxi stood up and walked forward doubtfully. You're not really going to convince me, are you? Teacher Zhua's face was full of disbelief. In fact, her little temper just now was not too much. She just felt that she was being looked down upon and was not very reconciled. She did not expect Qin Guang to really be able to convince her, because she did not think that Qin Guang had the ability to do so. In her eyes, Qin Guang was purely a guy who pretended to know what he did not know and made irresponsible remarks. All she wanted was for Qin Guang to apologize to her and admit that he was a snob. I took such a big risk to steal the results from Prince, but you're so easy to deny it with just one sentence. Do you know how unhappy I am? Can't you say sorry? She did not really intend to leave Qin Guang hanging for long. As long as he lowered his head and begged for mercy, she would immediately pounce on him and risk her life to accompany him. Even if she had to be tormented by him until the next morning, even if she was foaming at the mouth until she was dehydrated, this guy, Qin Guang, shouldn't be that ruthless, right? My life shouldn't be in danger, right? Actually, if Qin Guang wanted to deal with her, he only needed 3 words, 2 seconds. But now Qin Guang did not know that he was also serious. When he really sat on the chair at the head of the bed and held a pen and paper with a serious face, really planning to write a formula for himself, it was Zhuo Jingxi who was confused. This guy can't be serious, can he? Does he really know? That's impossible. What are you still standing there for? Come here. Didn't you say you wanted me to explain it to you? Hurry up, it'll take a long time. Qin Guang waved the notebook and urged her. You actually dare to not believe in the old man's judgment. I'll let you see what a real master is. Things like learning and applying on the spot, this was what the old man was best at. Teacher Zhuo, you would never have thought that the old man was a person with real talent. I'm not joking with you. Being forced to this point by Zhuo Jingxi on the head of the bed, Qin Guang did not want to think about anything too shocking. In any case, the things he had done so far were not within the scope of common sense of ordinary people. It was not the first day that he had known Teacher Zhuo. With her psychological endurance, she should not be scared silly. She would definitely faint for a while, but it did not matter. Qin Guang slapped Zhuo Jingxi's perky butt across the chair. I've already said it and you still think I don't understand? Be serious, Professor Qin is teaching. Zhuo Jingxi shrunk her shoulders and pretended to be very scared. Okay, Professor Qin, I understand. It's good that you understand. Let's continue. Your formula can even be said to be a kind of innovation. The illumination conditions required are not the traditional ultraviolet rays but X-rays. It is fundamentally different from the traditional photocatalyst in terms of structure and catalytic reaction. Zhuo Jingxi did not question Qin Guang this time. She only nodded and said, yes, yes. The more she listened, the more shocked she became. This guy seemed to really understand it? He instantly grasped the key point. Qin Guang grinned. That's right. After saying that, he immediately turned around and wrote down a long string of letters and molecular chains in his notebook. This is the molecular formula of the final core catalytic component of your formula, right? Zhuo Jingxi nodded blankly. Yes, you memorized it all? Oh my god. Qin Guang slapped her butt hard again. What did I say just now? I told you to stop questioning me. Zhuo Jingxi nodded vigorously. Okay. After that, Qin Guang scribbled down a long series of reaction equations. This is the specific process when your formula catalyzes the most common hydrolysis reaction of ethyl acetate. Here, X-rays intervene, provide potential energy, destroy the Coulomb force between the molecules, and a substitution reaction occurs. After a full 15 minutes, Qin Guang stopped to explain. Did I get everything right? After being slapped twice on the butt, Zhuo Jingxi learned her lesson and no longer questioned him. She only nodded and said, yes, there is no problem with what you said, but this doesn't mean that my formula is useless, right? Qin Guang pounced on the notebook again, flipped a page, and wrote the molecular structure of the 16-membered ring macrolide in a blank space. This is the key point. You see, the molecular formula of the 16-membered ring macrolide is completely different from ethyl acetate. The bond energy distribution within the molecule is like this. After a full half an hour, Qin Guang had filled 3 pages in a row. Now do you realize that your formula is much less effective in catalyzing the 16-membered ring macrolide and that it requires a much higher dose of X-rays? Zhuo Jingxi nodded blankly. Yes. Chapter 1051. She couldn't believe it. As Qin Guang wrote, he explained to her word by word. He analyzed the bond energy and functional groups at the atomic level, and even took into account the substitution reaction in the middle and later stages of the catalytic reaction. It took her half an hour to understand. However, in the laboratory of Tongshan factory, he had just finished reading his notebook and came to a conclusion. He knew that his formula was not good. This meant that in that half an hour he had been reading his notebook and deducing. Then, he had used his brain to complete the entire theoretical framework and reasoning, and it was perfect. It was impossible for her to do it. It could only be verified through actual experiments. However, he had come to a conclusion with just theoretical deduction. How did your brain do the calculations? Are you a master? A true master was this. When an ordinary researcher's level of knowledge hadn't reached that level, they wouldn't be able to grasp the most critical core problem. However, a master had a complete and mature system of knowledge in his mind. He could see through the window paper that ordinary researchers couldn't. Ordinary researchers could only be researchers, while a master was responsible for coming to a conclusion. Just like Dickens or Einstein, they were not on the same level as ordinary people in terms of thinking. A problem that ordinary researchers couldn't understand in their entire lives, once it was pointed out by a master, the researcher would suddenly understand. So that's how it is. It's so simple. Why didn't I think of it earlier? However, the researcher also understood that if he had thought of it earlier, he wouldn't be a researcher struggling in the laboratory. According to Zhuo Jingxi's work experience, even if the person in charge of Prince's laboratory wanted to sort out Chen Guang's idea, from the germination of the motive to the deduction of the conclusion, it would be impossible without the help of an entire project team. Even if the conclusion was correct and obvious. But he came up with it on the spot? Are you still human? What's with this guy's brain? Seeing that Zhuo Jingxi had been stunned by him, Chen Guang grinned. Don't panic, don't worry. It's not over yet. It's still early. Alright, let's continue. At this very moment, in the luxurious business suite of the best 5-star hotel in Tongshan City, a man and a woman were sharing a room. The woman's figure was graceful and beautiful, and the man, well, he could only be considered a little handsome, but he was super rich. This was supposed to be the occasion and situation of a modern tycoon star keeping a beautiful doctor as his mistress, and a single man and woman booking a room in the Inferno Hotel to carry out dirty PY transactions. The two of them were actually sitting together naked and discussing photocatalysis. Furthermore, he was the head of Prince's laboratory, a level of knowledge that even the Nobel Prize winner from 5 years ago could not reach. Even a god would have to scold him for being retarded. Zhuo Jingxi could not remember what she had been thinking. She had been pulled into a sea of knowledge by Chen Guang's extremely domineering and invincible dazzling skills. She was lost in it and did not know where she was. On this ordinary night, the unprecedented advancement of photocatalysis technology was happening in this second-tier city's hotel. It happened between a man and a woman who were supposed to be rolling in the sheets but were sitting together discussing photocatalysis like retarded idiots. If Zhuo Jingxi was willing to tell this matter a few decades later, this year would probably be listed as the first year of human photocatalysis, and tonight would be called the night of the god of photocatalysis technology. Just now, we calculated the specific X-ray dose, but in practical use, sewage is different from water. It has color and a very high light absorption rate. According to my calculations, in order to achieve the catalytic effect, the radiation dose must continue to rise by 70%. Isn't this already far beyond the safety threshold that the human body can bear? After another half an hour, Chen Guang wrote another 7 or 8 pages and wrote down the number 137 millisieverts/second. Zhuo Jingxi nodded. It's like this. Once the human body continuously withstands radiation exceeding 100 millisieverts, it will be damaged. That's right. Considering the water situation of Tongshan Industrial Plant, how high is the equipment and operating cost required for such a large dose of X-ray machine? How high will the maintenance cost be? In order to ensure safety and not cause harm to the surrounding residents, we must build a fully enclosed anti-radiation factory. How high is the construction cost? This number I pinched my fingers to calculate. The production line for antibiotic wastewater alone will cost more than 100 million, and the daily operating cost will exceed 1 million. This is only one of the 5 super difficult wastewater. The other 4 have not been settled at all. So, Teacher Zhuo, the formula you brought back really has no theoretical basis for industrial application in Tongshan Industrial Plant. Chen Guang sighed, slowly closed the notebook, and gave a conclusion that made Zhuo Jingxi feel extremely desperate. Zhuo Jingxi was stunned for a long time. Her mind was full of thoughts. She was surprised by Chen Guang's set of incredible inferences, but she also felt extremely depressed and sad that the formula she brought back was useless. Her mood was indescribably complicated. Chen Guang was not in a hurry to disturb her. Instead, he looked at her quietly and let her think on her own. Of course, his eyes were also very dishonest. They wandered up and down Zhuo Jingxi's body in a very wretched manner. Too many things had happened before, so she was not in the mood to take a good look at Teacher Zhuo's body, which had become thinner. Oh, my little heart is hurting. Look at how thin you've become. Even your chest has become smaller. Even though that's the case, being smaller has its advantages. It seems like you're a little straighter than before? How annoying. Right now, she was completely thinking about things and some parts of her body did not straighten up. Cough cough, forget it. Anyway, the old man had already taken care of her. There would be bread and milk. Sooner or later it would all be mine. Also, Teacher Zhuo's waist looked a little slimmer than before. Although it was pretty good in the past, it seemed to have more curves now. What a naughty navel. I really want to touch it with my hand. Chen Guang's gaze continued to move downwards. Zhuo Jingxi finally came back to her senses and let out a long sigh. Sigh. Without batting an eyelid, Chen Guang reached out his hand and put it around her shoulder. He gently pulled her over and comforted her. It's okay. Although there are some flaws in your formula, it can inspire my thoughts. Don't worry, I have a way. Zhuo Jingxi raised her head and stared at him. If only I had known this would happen, I would have spied on other people's things in the laboratory. If only I could get more formulas back. Chen Guang glared at her. Stop fooling around. You took your own results away quietly. When Prince comes looking for you later, you might be able to negotiate with him. If you steal other people's results, are you trying to cause an international dispute? He was not joking. As the top laboratory in the United States, Prince represented the top level of technology in the United States. Needless to say, its relationship with the government was very close. Once Zhuo Jingxi returned to the country, stealing the results of her own project team could be barely explained. However, stealing from others would definitely be the highest level of espionage. When the American government came looking for him, Chen Guang would definitely side with them and not with reason. He would definitely pull the old masters into a confrontation, and the old masters would have to give him face. That would be a huge problem. Zhuo Jingxi did not dare to raise her head after being lectured by Chen Guang. She still said unwillingly, "But I didn't help." Chen Guang chuckled. "Aren't I here? Believe me, you can help. You can help a lot." As he spoke, he slid the hand that was holding Teacher Zhuo's shoulder down and quietly placed it somewhere. He was reluctant to move it away. Zhuo Jingxi's body stiffened slightly, and a blush gradually appeared on her face. She continued to say, "If it's just this kind of help, I can help and I'm very happy to. But you know that's not all I want." No. I'm talking about photocatalysis. Chen Guang was ready to lay the groundwork for her. Dear female doctor, are you mentally prepared to receive advanced technology that transcends time? The old man will personally open the door to a new world of photocatalysis for you. However, Zhuo Jingxi still shook her head in slight frustration. It's impossible. Although my results are not very useful, they are indeed the highest internal evaluation of Prince. There is no newer technology in the world. I have it. Chen Guang pointed at himself with his left hand. His face was calm, but there was a hidden, murderous intent. You have it? Zhuo Jingxi frowned slightly at first, but gradually her eyes became brighter. When her frustration was overwhelmed by surprise, another emotion that should have appeared prevailed, and she gradually forgot that her formula was useless. Speaking of which, what's going on with you? What have you experienced in the past 6 months? Where did you learn all this? In Zhuo Jingxi's eyes, Chen Guang's most anticipated expression appeared. Admiration, shock, disbelief, and a trace of pity. Chen Guang decided in an instant that he was going to tell a big lie. He hugged Zhuo Jingxi tightly and said emotionally, "I didn't go anywhere and I didn't experience anything. I just read books when I have time. Didn't you tell me before that as long as humans master photocatalysis, they can solve a lot of problems that couldn't be solved before, and they can return the motherland to a great land? I believe you, but I don't know if I can help you. Anyway, I'll go to the library when I have time, or find someone to buy some reference books for me to study. You know that my English is very good and I've read a lot of SCI papers in the past 6 months. Of course, I don't know what level I'm at now, so I didn't dare to tell you. You know a lot of things that happened later and I became very rich. When I was an undergraduate, I stupidly plunged into the unlucky major of environmental science. Now that I have money and this ability, I'll build a sewage plant. It's just that I'm new to this industry. I didn't expect to plunge into the big pit of Tongshan Industrial Plant before I could get out of the pit of environmental science. And then didn't you come back? I didn't think about photocatalysis before, and I didn't think I was very capable. But you inspired me. I looked at your notes and found that it was quite easy to understand. Then I thought about it in my own mind. I didn't consider your feelings at the time, so I just blurted out the conclusion to you. As for what I was thinking at the time, it was what was written in this notebook. Qin Guang patted the notebook with a calm face. Only God knew how proud he was at this moment. Chapter 1052. Zhuo Jingxi's breathing became more and more rapid, and her face became redder and redder. She no longer cared about being reserved and hugged Qin Guang tightly. She screamed hysterically, "You bastard! You've really given me such a big surprise without me noticing. Do you know how much of a genius you are? I even think that Einstein and Newton are just SOSO. You actually did this for me." Towards the end she was almost choking up. Qin Guang, on the other hand, was embarrassed. What kind of genius am I? I risked my life to learn this in the world in the cup. Because of this unlucky photocatalyst, this baby now owes a debt of 1.46 billion yuan. 2 years later I might even die. Don't be like this. It's actually not that tiring. I really don't think it's that hard. I didn't deliberately learn it for you, Xiao Cici. I can read 10 lines at a glance, but I didn't think that I would learn it like this. Qin Guang never thought that his skin could be so thick. He felt that ever since he became a master of acting, it was as if a whole new world had opened up to him. Zhuo Jingxi looked at him with hazy eyes. No, don't say it like that. I know you just want to help me. You're doing it for my own good. It's really unbelievable. You look average and lazy in class, but in the end your talent in this area is unprecedented. You don't even know how much I admire you now. I really love you to death. After saying that, she suddenly leaned forward and kissed Qin Guang's lips hard. Teacher Zhuo was fooled badly. His invincible picking up skills were so strong that even Qin Guang blushed. How could I not know how much you admire me? This is the effect I want. He looked at the clock on the wall without batting an eyelid. Damn, another 2 hours had passed. According to the theory that every minute was worth 1,000 gold, he had lost as much as 8,000 gold. It was a huge loss. We'll talk about the 5 godly formulas tomorrow. Didn't the old man just want to roll in the sheets? Why was it so difficult? Photocatalyst coaxing a girl. The old man admired himself for it. That little Cici, you see, we're already at this point, shouldn't we? However, Zhuo Jingxi forcibly controlled her emotions and slapped away his demonic claws. Wait a minute, you just said you have it? Did you come up with a new formula in your head? Tell me about it. Qin Guang, damn it, the old man really wanted to die. What the hell did I say just now? Can't I pretend to be pretentious tomorrow? I regret it so much that my intestines are in knots. Qin Guang kept a straight face and looked at Zhuo Jingxi with a pair of dead fish eyes full of resentment. His gaze seemed to be saying, "You disobedient little baby, are you done for today? Can we please stop for a while?" Zhuo Jingxi, on the other hand, had no idea how powerful it was. She was still immersed in incomparable excitement. She acted coquettishly and shook Qin Guang's arm. Come on. Tell me about it. This was the after-effect of successfully pretending to be pretentious. She was too mesmerized. As an industry insider, Zhuo Jingxi had completely forgotten how impossible it was to come up with a photocatalyst formula out of thin air in such a short period of time. Qin Guang's resentment soared to the sky, almost blowing off the ceiling of the hotel. However, he really could not dissuade Zhuo Jingxi. Forget it. I'll first write the formula to solve the problem of 16-membered ring macrolides for you to see. However, the old man is not in a good mood right now and needs a little encouragement. Zhuo Jingxi was not wearing any clothes anyway. She puffed out her chest and said, "Here, put your left hand here and write with your right hand, okay?" Qin Guang nodded in satisfaction. That's great. 5 minutes later, Zhuo Jingxi looked at the super complicated formula that filled the entire page. Her face was flushed with passion, but she was also confused. I don't understand. What are you doing? Photocatalyst? How do you synthesize this? This isn't a compound structure that should appear on Earth at all. Qin Guang was also stunned. He had only thought about pretending to be pretentious, but he had forgotten that although his 5 god-level formulas were theoretically the limit of modern technology manufacturing, the level of knowledge had completely surpassed the current level of modern technology. Just like gravitational waves, before it was discovered, many people knew of its existence, but there was no evidence at all. This gravitational wave was Schrödinger's cat. It could exist or not. Qin Guang had not worried about this very serious problem before. He did not think that if Teacher Zhuo did not understand his formula at all, how would she make it? He did not have the time to do it himself. The 2-year deadline was like a death trap for him. This was King awkward. Qin Guang began to panic. He braced himself and said, "Let me explain it to you?" Zhuo Jingxi nodded blankly. She was even more embarrassed than Qin Guang. She was Qin Guang's teacher, a senior genius doctor at Gokyo University, and a potential rookie who had achieved level 1 in Prince's laboratory, the world's top scientific research institution, within half a year. However, I couldn't understand the new formula that my student had come up with on the spot after spending half a year of self-study. That's too much, my friend. You're really too much. No matter how much of a genius you are, there should be a limit, right? What kind of intelligence does it take to build such a complex supernova photocatalyst structure out of nothing in such a short period of time? Are you really human? Or is it that the one living in your body is actually a highly intelligent alien race that has advanced enough technology to travel through time and space and travel through wormholes? Are you the inheritor of the universe's level 10 civilization who came to help the people of Earth? This does not make sense at all. How can a human's thinking be so fast and accurate? In a situation that completely exceeds the current level of knowledge, you were able to instantly deduce such a complex formula. How terrifying is your memory and computing power? Is the structure of your brain equivalent to the sum of the computing power of all human computers, or is there no difference between time and space to you? Did you complete the theoretical advancement in another plane of time? Or, in other words, the you standing in front of me is just a carrier of your physical body, just a small part of your physical body to facilitate my understanding and recognition. And your real body is actually as large as the solar system, a level 10 civilization's cosmic life form that exists as a force field ripple or a pure energy body. You used an energy body as large as the entire solar system to complete the calculation? The more Zhuo Jingxi thought about it, the more terrified she became. This was also her fault. She was a researcher at the top of the pyramid, and the scientific and technological concepts she came into contact with were already at the leading level in the world. Although astronomy and the theoretical research of extraterrestrial life were not her specialty, she would often discuss it during her free time at work. Her imagination was already quite wide, and now that she was like a galloping horse galloping thousands of miles away, she had no idea where she had run off to. Qin Guang's left hand did not stop moving. He was happily talking, but when he saw Zhuo Jingxi's extremely strange gaze, he felt goosebumps all over his body. "Why are you looking at me like that?" He stopped his explanation and asked anxiously. Zhuo Jingxi reached out her right hand and grabbed Qin Guang's face. She brought her eyes closer and carefully looked at him. "Tell me honestly, who are you? Are you Qin Guang? No, which planet are you from? Which galaxy?" Qin Guang almost choked to death on his own saliva. "Stop messing around, be serious." Zhuo Jingxi was unmoved. She stared at Qin Guang's eyes as if she wanted to find another soul in them. She said, "I'm very serious, very serious." Qin Guang's left hand exerted more force. "Then listen carefully. Listen to Teacher Qin, I'll tell you about photocatalysis. Classmate Zhuo, please correct your attitude. Don't worry about how I came up with these things. Anyway, I just know it. If I say that it was completely based on intuition, you can understand it that way. Anyway, when I finished reading your paper, a lot of indescribable halos and streams of consciousness suddenly appeared in my mind. I can't describe that mysterious feeling at all. It was as if all the knowledge I had been learning was completely uncontrollably emerging in my mind. I seemed to be thinking at the time, but I didn't realize it at all. When I suddenly woke up, the formula was already in my mind. At this time, the expression on Qin Guang's face had a trace of longing, but also 30% calmness and 30% confusion. He almost prostrated himself in admiration. He had unknowingly created a new field of scientific research. Metaphysical research. Of course, Zhuo Jingxi still felt that it was unbelievable. Normal people wouldn't believe it. But other than that, she couldn't find a more reasonable explanation. She stared blankly at Qin Guang for 5 minutes, constantly convincing herself. It wasn't until Qin Guang's left hand was becoming more and more unrestrained that she finally accepted Qin Guang's metaphysical research explanation. Facts spoke louder than words. No matter how he did it, he had already done it, and it was clearly displayed in front of her. Although it was impossible to verify it now, according to previous experience, if Qin Guang felt that it was useful, then it should be 80% to 90% correct. This couldn't be the result of someone else preparing it in advance. Prince was a well-deserved global leader in this field. If even Prince couldn't understand the formula, then it really exceeded the current level of human technology. If someone had the ability to develop this, how could it be unknown? Other than Qin Guang's own metaphysical explanation, there was really no other way to think of it. Zhuo Jingxi sighed. She squinted her eyes and continued to look at the super complicated formula that was written all over the paper. She said, "Okay, Professor Qin, continue." "I'm listening." Qin Guang nodded with satisfaction. He enjoyed it very much. The fingertips of his left hand gently moved. "That's a good girl. Qin Guang, don't be like this. I can't concentrate." Okay. Dreams were plentiful, but reality was harsh. An hour later, when Qin Guang had only written 1/5 of the formula, Zhuo Jingxi held her head and complained that she had a headache. "You, stop writing. I can't understand it at all. This is too beyond my knowledge. It's not just me. Any of the world's top photocatalysts would be the same. This is a whole new set of theory and architecture. My God, room temperature, no damage, a structure more stable than gold, super high efficiency, and most importantly, it can be activated by visible light. And its adaptability to light wavelengths is extremely wide. I can't understand its principle. Even if you explain it to me, it's like listening to a book from heaven. So far, I haven't even seen a deduction that is close to it. You're standing at a height that ordinary researchers like us can't understand at all. You're basically the same as Tesla, at least 50 years ahead of this era." As Zhuo Jingxi spoke, she shook her head desperately. She felt that her head was about to explode. Qin Guang looked at her and felt that he was about to explode too. Chapter 1053. Zhuo Jingxi's trouble was that she couldn't understand the formula. She returned from the United States with confidence, but in the end she only learned a little bit. Her 8 years of hard work since she entered the undergraduate course were far less than Qin Guang's 6 months of self-study. Now he had put the road in front of her, but she couldn't walk on it. If she could understand his formula, she might be able to help him materialize this photocatalyst from the theory on paper into a real product and further implement it in Tangshan Industrial Factory. But she didn't understand it at all, so she was desperate. "Although it's good that you have become so powerful now, and I also admire you very much, I still can't help you. I'm still a burden." Qin Guang's troubles were much simpler and more straightforward. He really didn't have time to promote the work of putting the 5 God-level formulas into practice. Although he was the only one who understood it, he must shift his focus to Oscar's direction in 2 or 3 days at the latest. However, the final operating period of Tangshan Industrial Factory was only 4 months. All problems must be completely solved within 4 months. This was also a line of death that could not be ignored. If it could be done, they could smoothly take out 5 God-level photocatalysts, make use of the 5 pretreatment pools that had been invested 20 million yuan, and finalize patents and national scientific and technological achievements progress awards as quickly as possible, so that Xiaoguang Environmental Protection could become a high-tech innovative enterprise, and at the same time, steadily meet the standards. They could justifiably correspond to the floating clause signed between Xiaoguang Environmental Protection and the Tangshan municipal government, reasonably and legally promote the renegotiation of the operating period, and also get tax reduction and exemption. From then on, Xiaoguang Environmental Protection and Tangshan Industrial Factory would be free to jump in the sea and fly in the sky. Even Qin Guang could use Xiaoguang Environmental Protection as the basis to restructure the company and completely integrate it into the Qingguang Group, becoming a new large sector in the group and a new growth point of business. The potential profits that might be brought by promoting the 5 God-level photocatalyst formulas alone were definitely more than $100 billion. Because of the particularity and complexity of materials science, patents in this area were extremely difficult to break. Materials science patents were extremely valuable, not to mention photocatalysts, which represented the next generation, had a wide range of applications. Not only was it efficient and pollution-free, but it was also low-cost and could even control pollution. As long as they firmly grasped the 5 God-level photocatalysts and steadily promoted their industrialization, they would be able to monopolize and lead the world in pioneering technologies. Given time, it would not be a pipe dream for Xiaoguang Environmental Protection to grow into a behemoth that spanned across the world. The future looked beautiful, but his life was more important. The saddest thing in the world is to have too much money and then die. Money or life, Qin Guang didn't have a choice. If he couldn't count on Zhuo Jingxi, the only option left was to completely overthrow and rebuild. Furthermore, this decision had to be made as soon as possible. Next week at the latest, they would have to start a full-scale reconstruction. At the same time, Qin Guang had to use his connections to destroy the legal bidding results of the Tiansong Water Group. Such a result would put him in a passive position morally, make him bleed financially, and pay a huge unnecessary price. It would also declare his action to save Tangshan Industrial Factory a complete failure. Since he had been holding on for so long, it was even more impossible for Qin Guang to let go. He had never been a standard businessman. What he wanted was to be happy. Now, even if Song Ningyuan waved a check of 200 million in front of him and asked him to transfer it at the original price, he would not lose a cent and could even make a profit. In addition, if he couldn't get the 5 god-level formulas with the help of Zhuo Jingxi now, Qin Guang estimated that he would not be able to think about doing this in the next 2 years. Then these 5 formulas that he had exchanged his life for would have to be covered in dust for at least 2 years. It could be said to be a great regret. But what could he do about regret? He couldn't force others to do something they didn't want to do. It would be incredible if Zhuo Jingxi could easily understand what he had learned from the world in the cup. Not everyone was Einstein. Alas, since I can't understand it, then forget it. Qin Guang threw the pen away and decided to give up struggling. The movement of his left hand slowed down a bit, feeling a little melancholy. Zhuo Jingxi blushed and said with self-blame, "I'm sorry, I didn't expect that I still couldn't help at all." She could not hide the disappointment in her tone. Qin Guang picked her up by the waist. "Don't worry about these minor details. At worst, it's just a Tongshan industrial factory. I can rebuild it. Money is just a worldly possession. I can't bring it with me when I'm dead. Besides, if I spend more this time, I can still earn it back in the future." Zhuo Jingxi wrapped her arms around Qin Guang's neck and said, "I know your situation, but this will put you in a very passive position." Qin Guang laid her flat on the bed. "What does it matter? Didn't I say before? No one can be perfect in this world. Besides, there's still a long way to go. It's not like the knowledge in my head will be stolen. Looking at you, I should be very powerful now, right?" Zhuo Jingxi nodded. "It's more than powerful. I'm not very familiar with how high-end things can be turned into industries, but it seems that in modern society, mastering knowledge, especially knowledge that surpasses others, is equivalent to mastering wealth. Isn't that right?" Zhuo Jingxi wanted to pull the blanket over, but Qin Guang's gaze was not very natural. She felt strange. Did this guy change? Based on your previous behavior, shouldn't you be pouncing on me like a hungry wolf hunting its prey? Why are you still talking to me about photocatalysts? Although it was very important, I really had no choice. I tried my best to learn, but I couldn't learn it. But since you've already laid it out, give me some time. I'll slowly learn it and you can teach me more in the future. I should be able to handle it. But now I'm really a little sleepy. Why don't we get down to business early and talk about other things tomorrow morning?" Zhuo Jingxi spread her legs slightly and a mysterious smile appeared on her face. She purposely said in a very sweet voice, "Yes, Qin Guang, you're amazing." Qin Guang lay down next to her. "Of course. But don't worry, I'm busy now. It doesn't matter if you can't understand my formula for the time being. You don't have to worry about anything else for the time being, just stay by my side. When I have time, I'll teach you from the basics. Knowledge may seem profound, but as long as you break through the window paper and jump out of the shackles of traditional thinking, it'll be very easy to understand new things. For example, if you tell the ancients that the earth is round and that the earth revolves around the sun, the ancients will spit you to death, but now it's common sense. I believe that with your talent you can still learn it." Qin Guang was really confident. With the talent of an ordinary university student, he could go from having no foundation to becoming a master in the world of cups. Although Teacher Zhuo was just an ordinary person now, her real talent was definitely top-notch. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so valued by the big shot in the country, Professor Xu, at such a young age. Now, all she needed was for him to pull her out of the shackles of the current photocatalysis science and to unfold another picture that was closer to the true meaning of science. She only lacked a guide. "And I, Qin Guang, will be your guide. Are you really willing to teach me?" Qin Guang rolled his eyes. "Nonsense, if I don't teach you, who else can I teach? Didn't I learn photocatalysis to help you? Being your assistant is helping you and teaching you new knowledge is also helping you. It's all the same." Zhuo Jingxi was overjoyed. She turned over and threw herself at him. "Qin Guang, you're so good to me." "Of course." Qin Guang was moved to tears and fiercely clenched his fists. After a night full of twists and turns, he could finally get to the main topic. All for the sake of rolling in the sheets. With a pinch of his fingers, Teacher Zhuo and I talked from life philosophy to the latest high-end technology. To be able to pick up girls to such a high level, even if he wasn't the best in the world, he should be in the top 10. 3 seconds later, Teacher Zhuo once again, Qin Guang's clenched fists loosened. Before he could retract the joy on his face, Teacher Zhuo softly rolled her eyes and fell to the ground. Qin Guang had experienced a lot, so he had a strong psychological resistance. If it was someone else who was continuously cheated like this, they would have already hung themselves. This time, teacher Zhua fell even more thoroughly than the last time. Chen Guang had no choice but to help her sit up and put his hands on her back to transfer air to her. About half an hour later, Zhua Jingxi slowly woke up and looked at Chen Guang with embarrassment. "Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to hold on for a little longer, but I really couldn't do it." Chen Guang sighed. "It's okay. It's not your fault." "Do you also do this with others?" Zhua Jingxi suddenly asked. Chen Guang answered casually, "It's all the same." After he answered, he felt that something was wrong. Damn it, he spilled the beans. Sure enough, Zhua Jingxi immediately pretended to be furious. "Wow. You rascal, once I left, you really didn't play your part." As she made a fuss, she raised her hand and hammered Chen Guang's shoulder. Chen Guang felt guilty, so he held his head and let her vent. Unexpectedly, when Zhua Jingxi's fist hammered his shoulder, Chen Guang felt that it did not seem to be that heavy. Something was wrong. According to the psychology of acting, teacher Zhua did not seem to be angry. Instead, she was acting coquettishly? Could it be, "Sigh, you rascal. Forget it, I don't have the right to control you. I'm just a poor female doctor who is kept by a rich family." Zhua Jingxi hammered for a while, then pretended to be full of remorse and almost sang at the side. Chen Guang knew that she was pretending, so he could not turn a blind eye to her performance. He went up to her and sighed. "I don't know what to say." Sigh. Zhua Jingxi turned around and rolled her eyes at him. "All right, I'm not really angry. I'm much older than you and you will have your own life in the future. I'm quite happy now. I'm very satisfied with being with you. Today I'm more satisfied than ever before. You know that I don't really care about money. I just didn't expect you to learn photocatalysis for me, and to learn it to such a level. Teacher Chen, student Zhua, my money was all given by you, so I can't give you tuition. So this is the tuition I'm giving you. Are you satisfied?" Chen Guang nodded. I'm satisfied. It's good that you're satisfied. No matter what, please take care of me in the future." Actually, if I hadn't met you, I would have made up my mind to marry academics for the rest of my life. Now that I can put academics and my man together, you don't know how satisfied I am. Come on. Another hour passed and Zhua Jingxi woke up again. Chen Guang had a pair of dead fish eyes as if he had nothing to live for. He used his hand as a knife and swung it between his legs. He thought, since I can regenerate, I might as well cut it off and let it grow again. When that time comes, it shouldn't be as strong as it is now, right? Chapter 1054. However, he did not have the courage to do so. Regeneration and self-healing would definitely not be a problem, but it would definitely be painful. Chen Guang imagined the bloody scene in his mind and suddenly felt his hair stand on end. Forget it, I'll endure it. If I do this, it might leave a psychological scar on me. It would be awkward if I had to go to a psychiatrist. Zhua Jingxi turned around and looked at him with a face full of pity. She wiped the sweat off her face and said, I'm so thirsty. I'll go drink a glass of water first. Look at you, there's no hope. You can't really torture me to death, right? I've used up all my strength. With that, she stretched out her finger and flicked between Chen Guang's legs. She scolded again, I'll flick you to death, you little monster who tortures people. Chen Guang saw that she was struggling to get up. I'll help you get some water. Sit down and rest. Zhua Jingxi gulped down a large cup of cold water and reclined lazily on the chair. She was as lazy as a Winnie the Pooh hibernating in winter. She looked at Chen Guang from head to toe with her seductive eyes. There was a hint of unwillingness in her eyes, but there was also a hint of fear. She was really a little afraid. After Chen Guang sat down, Zhua Jingxi mustered up her courage and said, No wonder men in ancient times had multiple wives. Women are really at a disadvantage in terms of physique. Every time they become like this in a few seconds. They are no match for you men. What should we do tonight? What else can I do? She wanted to suggest that they just sleep like this, but she could not bear to do so. However, Chen Guang did not hear the hidden meaning in her words. There's no such thing. Actually, my situation is special. I can't explain it to you in a few words. Normal men and women are not like this. Haven't you heard of this saying? There are only cows that die of exhaustion. There are no fields that are damaged by plowing. This cows that die of exhaustion actually refers to men. Zhua Jingxi was stunned. Her face was full of disbelief. There's no reason for that. Right now, it's clearly my field that has been plowed through. I always thought that all women were like me only for a few seconds. In this aspect you are indeed no different from an ordinary woman. It is I who is too different from an ordinary man. Alright, I'll admit it to you. I have a special ability. In this aspect I'm super strong. I can't even describe it to you accurately. You know about the ancient Buddha, right? Unending life, right? I'm not bragging, but they're not even fit to carry my shoes. Qin Guang wasn't bragging. The invincible pile driver was paired with the perfect physique, and he even had the powerful earth elemental energy recovery from the earth sauce exploder. Not to mention, there were also quite a few aphrodisiac boosting arts among the 400,000 that formed the true martial divine art. Fortunately, my surname is not Jia. Otherwise, I would have to change my name to Jia Padian. If I were born in Japan, I would have to change my name to Nikawa Okazuka. That's right, I'm a Chinese. Zhuo Jingxi was stunned at first. She thought for a long time before she realized what he meant. She felt that something was wrong. The relationship between her and Qin Guang was completely different from what they portrayed in the movies. She used to think that it was a forced show effect to ensure the length of the film, and that the actresses had taken drugs that could increase their endurance. Now she understood. Is that so? No wonder you're always restless. After all this time, no one can satisfy you? She'll lower your voice. Don't wash your dirty linen in public. Don't tell anyone else. Zhuo Jingxi rocked back and forth in laughter, almost falling down. It took her a long time to calm down. Seeing that Qin Guang was still as strong as ever, she sighed. Forget it. I'll give it my all today. Qin Guang asked, what's wrong? 5 minutes later, he finally understood Zhuo Jingxi's plan. He had never thought that as the world's strongest martial artist, the master of the 3,000 worlds of the heavenly Holy Grail, and the former director of the General Directorate of Light, he would always be called the swollen chrysanthemum chief by the two indecent deputy directors. In the end, it really came true. Sister Lu Fei and Teacher Zhuo were the same. Qin Guang's eyes were misty with tears. If I had a choice, I wouldn't want to be like this. So I forget it. This is all fate. This *T fate. He sighed and looked pitifully at Zhuo Jingxi, who had her back to him, and gently moved forward. It hurts. It's okay, it's okay. It won't hurt soon. His inner strength surged. Qin Guang sent the cold but warm inner strength through an unspeakable part. Zhuo Jingxi's pain immediately lessened, and she moaned in comfort. Qin Guang covered his face. If the guy who created this ice jade arts in the realm of true martial knew that the old man was using his martial emperor's unique skill like this, he would probably jump out of his coffin and fight with him. Forget it. It's useless even if you jump out. I'm not in the realm of true martial. If you don't like it, break through the barrier of the Holy Grail and fight me? You can't beat me. Just as he was feeling proud of himself, there was a sudden ding-dong in his head. Then, the electronic notification of the heavenly Holy Grail sounded in his heart. Forced PY transaction cooldown is over. Redeemer can be used at any time. Qin Guang's eyes widened. Wait, what the hell is this? At this extremely special time, the special skill of forced PY transaction actually cooled down. Is this some kind of indescribable attribute compatibility? He looked down at Zhuo Jingxi, who was sweating profusely and almost exhausted. An idea popped up in his head that even he himself was not sure about. Then the question is, can I use super overbearing forced PY transaction to force Teacher Zhuo to understand my 5 god level formulas? If I say you understand, then you must understand. If I say you understand, then you must understand. Even if you don't understand, you must understand. After a brief thought, Qin Guang decisively decided to use the precious forced PY transaction until now. The Oscar thing would be left for later. Anyway, there would be more than one judge. Even if the PY transaction skill was still on cooldown, he could only deal with one person at that time. He still had to think of other ways to deal with the rest. Therefore, there was no better time than now. Skill cooldowns had always been like this. The earlier the skill was used, the earlier the cooldown. The great esports philosopher Yu Yufeng once said, "Not big is equal to empty." Therefore, Qin Guang focused his gaze on Zhuo Jingxi's back and said in his heart, "Dear Teacher Zhuo, I'm sorry, I'm doing this for your own good. Although we are in the middle of a PY transaction, eat my double PY transaction." The next moment, both Qin Guang and Zhuo Jingxi appeared on the Battle of Tongues. The electronic notification of the heavenly Holy Grail sounded at the same time. Double forced PY transaction begin now. Qin Guang, seriously, unlucky cup, you don't have to learn from me to specifically point this out. Forget it, this isn't important. Qin Guang turned his gaze to Teacher Zhuo in the distance. Teacher Zhuo isn't wearing a civil official robe or general armor. She isn't wearing anything at all. Then Qin Guang looked at himself again. Alright, I'm actually not wearing anything either. But at this time, Zhuo Jingxi's eyes were lifeless, and she didn't have her own consciousness. But at this time, Zhuo Jingxi's eyes were lifeless, and she didn't have her own consciousness. Then all kinds of inexplicable proverbs, fallacies, nonsense, empty ears, and all kinds of strange verbal attacks were exchanged between Qin Guang and Zhuo Jingxi. Both of their health bars dropped rapidly. Zhuo Jingxi wasn't weak, and with the perception of the Holy Grail, she understood Qin Guang better than Chao Jingming or that unlucky waiter. Her normal attacks dealt an average of 20 points of damage. Fortunately, Qin Guang was an experienced PY transaction master, and he was very good at communicating with others. His damage was slightly higher than Zhuo Jingxi's, and his normal attacks dealt an average of 33 points of damage. After a seemingly intense but actually useless verbal battle, Qin Guang controlled the power of his moves, and the total damage dealt to Zhuo Jingxi was controlled to 100 points, no more and no less. As the verbal battle under Zhuo Jingxi slowly sank into the magma, this forced PY transaction came to an end. After leaving the PY transaction, Qin Guang looked at Zhuo Jingxi again, but found that she still didn't realize it. It was probably because her rationality was completely immersed in another matter, and she didn't have time to realize what was in her mind. However, Qin Guang's heart calmed down. In the instant the battle of words ended, the knowledge related to the 5 divine formulas had been forcefully stuffed into Teacher Zhuo's mind through the Transcendence Holy Grail's PY transaction. Forget it, let's not think about this for now. She should be able to sense it when she wakes up tomorrow morning. As Qin Guang was thinking this, he looked up at the clock on the wall. It was already past 6 o'clock in the morning. Fortunately, the curtains were tightly drawn, or else the light of the rising sun would have shone in from outside. He quickly focused his attention and quickly got down to business. After a full half an hour, Qin Guang changed 3 or 4 positions, and Zhuo Jingxi, who was almost exhausted, was finally able to fall into a deep sleep. Qin Guang really didn't have it easy. Not only did he have to take care of himself, but he also had to constantly transfer qi to Teacher Zhuo. She was tossed around too much. If she didn't protect her heart meridian, she might completely foam at the mouth and pass out. After tossing around for a whole night, Qin Guang was also a little sleepy, but he couldn't sleep yet. He carefully used his martial arts to nourish Zhuo Jingxi's body, using his internal energy to nurse her up and down, to ensure that there wouldn't be any sequelae. The two of them slept like there was no light from the sun or the moon. When Qin Guang opened his eyes again, the dusky yellow afterglow of the evening sun had already spilled in through the gap in the curtains. He sat up and saw that Zhuo Jingxi was already neatly dressed and sitting in front of the table. She was holding a pen and paper, scribbling something. She was completely engrossed, and didn't even notice that Qin Guang was standing behind her. Teachers were really understood. What she was writing now were the molecular formulas of the other 4 core functional factors of the new formula that he hadn't told her before. She had already written down the 4th one, so the 5th one shouldn't be a problem. Later, he would continue to use the metaphysical scientific research method to fool her. In any case, once she accepted this setting, even if he made a space-time wormhole appear in front of her later, she would probably be able to accept it with a clear conscience. Qin Guang was afraid of scaring her, so he didn't say anything to interrupt her. It wasn't until 10 minutes later that Zhuo Jingxi let out a long breath and threw the pen away. She stretched and bumped into Qin Guang's chest. She suddenly screamed and turned around to look at Qin Guang. She rebuked, "Why didn't you tell me that you were awake? You came to stand behind me without making a sound. You scared me." Qin Guang laughed mischievously. "I didn't make a sound because I was afraid of scaring you. I didn't expect you to be so timid." Zhuo Jingxi stood up and was about to ask him about it when she saw that he was still naked. She changed her words and said, "Go, go, go. Hurry up and put on your clothes." As Qin Guang was putting on his clothes, Zhuo Jingxi came over suspiciously and asked, "What else did you do to me last night? I don't even know what happened. When I woke up, I couldn't get these 5 things out of my head. Now, not only can I understand them, but I even know how to synthesize them. This is incredible." Qin Guang smiled mysteriously. "Teacher Zhuo, don't be angry if I tell you. Go ahead." Qin Guang said mischievously, "Last night? No, it should be this morning. When we did it for the last time, you lost consciousness for about half an hour. During this time, I tried to explain it to you at an extremely fast speed. I've heard of a theory that when a person's mind is wandering or seems to be completely still, their state of mind will actually enter a very mysterious state. The Buddhists call it enlightenment, the Taoists call it tranquility, and modern psychology calls it meditation. I used to think that this was nonsense. But yesterday I was in an even more mysterious state. I was wondering if I could use my unique voice to forcefully instill this knowledge into you when you were also lost in thought. At that time, I just had the mentality of giving it a try. I didn't expect it to actually work. Zhuo Jingxi nodded first. I see. Then she shook her head fiercely. No, that's not right. I have no impression at all. Qin Guang continued to bluff very calmly. Of course you won't have any impression. If you still maintain even a little bit of consciousness, you will completely not understand what I'm talking about. It's precisely because you have no impression that you can remember these 5 photocatalyst formulas. Zhuo Jingxi stared at him for a long time, stunned for a long time. In these short 24 hours, her outlook on life had been crazily subverted too many times. She even wondered if she was living on Earth now. Did I travel to a parallel universe without anyone noticing? Was the technology on Earth in this dimension more advanced? Or could it be that Qin Guang had already entered the next stage of human evolution before ordinary people on Earth? That was why he could do this kind of thing. Thinking of all the things in Qin Guang's past, the more Zhuo Jingxi thought about it, the more she felt that it was possible. It was not strange for a person to become the world's #1 in a certain field. After all, every year in the Olympics, the Olympic Games, and even the League of Legends' World Tournament, Dota International Invitational Tournament, there would be champions in any of these events. But Qin Guang was different. He was fully deserving of being the world's strongest in every field he touched, and he was at least 10,000 miles ahead of the world's second place. Other than the fact that he had broken through the barrier of Earth's genes, there was no other explanation. Therefore perhaps it was really as he said. Through his mysterious scientific thinking, coupled with his voice, perhaps there was some special magic that mobilized the bottom level of her consciousness when she was completely absent-minded, and forcibly imparted this knowledge to her. It was really unbelievable. When he said that he would teach her, although she was confident at that time, she was actually mentally prepared to learn from the beginning for 10 years. But in the blink of an eye, after waking up, she understood everything? Was she hallucinating? That was impossible. But the truth was that she really understood. Therefore, when Zhuo Jingxi woke up just now, she did not even realize that her stomach was growling. She pounced on the table like a madman and started writing the molecular formula on her own. She did it to make sure that it was real, not an illusion, and definitely not a dream. It seems like it's really like what you said? Zhuo Jingxi asked doubtfully. Qin Guang did not answer her. He only had a calm and unfathomable smile on his face. He smiled but did not say anything, as if telling her to figure it out on her own. All right, I'll figure it out myself. After a long time, Zhuo Jingxi sorted out the thoughts in her mind again and confirmed that she really understood this time. Only then did she understand that these 5 seemingly complicated and beyond the current era were, in the end, still an extension based on the current scientific theory. It was just that this extension was a little too far out of the current scope, which was why she was in a daze at that time. But now that she understood, if she tried to extrapolate it, she would find that the 5 major formulas of Qin Guang were essentially the same as modern photocatalysts. For example, Newton's law, which was once the truth, was an irrefutable truth in Newton's era. It was an epoch-making theory. However, after Einstein came up with the theory of relativity, the correctness of Newton's law became limited. When this limit was exceeded, it became wrong. However, Newton's achievements could not be denied because of this, because even Einstein's theory was based on the scientific foundation laid by Newton back then. After more than 300 years of development, it gradually advanced and evolved into Einstein's theory of relativity. The relationship between the 5 major formulas of Qin Guang and the science of photocatalysts in the current era was the same as the relationship between the theory of relativity and Newton's law. It was the same origin. Zhuo Jingxi was also very proud of herself. Her previous intuition was not wrong. Judging by the development of technology in the current era, if Qin Guang did not come up with these 5 major formulas now, he would have reached this step in about 50 years. I blindly guessed that I was ahead of the times by 50 years, and I really guessed it right. Qin Guang waited for her to sort out her thoughts before patting her on the shoulder and saying, Okay, stop thinking about it. The things have been engraved in your head, you can't forget them. Your stomach is growling. Let's go eat. Qin Guang also felt sorry for her. She had not eaten a single grain of rice since last night. Although he was the same, he was not afraid of hunger. Zhuo Jingxi nodded sweetly. Okay. The 2 of them were about to go out when Zhuo Jingxi suddenly reacted. It's not good for the 2 of us to go out together, right? She seemed to be a little hesitant, feeling that it was a little embarrassing. However, Qin Guang waved his hand indifferently. There's nothing wrong with it. If I really wanted to hide it, I would have been careful when I came back yesterday. It wouldn't have happened now. Don't worry, I've checked this hotel. There are no surveillance cameras in the suite. As long as no one captures the two of us walking out of the same room, there's nothing to be afraid of. What's more, even if I were to expose it now, the media would have to be willing to accept it, right? Zhuo Jingxi thought that this was true, so she did not say anything more. After the two of them went out, they randomly found a restaurant and asked for a private room. Qin Guang ordered a lot of nourishing soups, leaving the waiter dumbfounded. Unfortunately, Qin Guang had already put on a full disguise. Although the waiter was suspicious, he did not dare to ask too much. When they were almost done eating, Zhuo Jingxi suddenly remembered that Hua Ling and Zhong Yu should still be waiting for her in the laboratory. She screamed and got up to leave. Oh no. No, I have to go to the laboratory immediately. However, Qin Guang pressed her down on her seat. It's already so late. Can't you let others get off work? Don't go over today. Just call them and ask them to go back to the dormitory to rest. Zhuo Jingxi reacted. That seems to be the case? My formula is useless anyway? What's the point of verifying it? Qin Guang nodded. That makes sense. Then what should I do now? Isn't my existence meaningless? You can solve all the problems by yourself. Zhuo Jingxi suddenly lost her purpose. Qin Guang leaned over. Xiao Sisi, contrary to what you think, you are very important to me. Very important. What do you mean? Although I know how to prepare and synthesize the 5 major formulas, I have some special reasons. I have to leave Tongshan factory immediately and focus on other things. From now on, I'll have to leave everything here to Old Gua and Xiao Sisi. I can give you money. As long as I haven't used up all my money, I won't give up on Tongshan factory. But my time is too tight. So, Xiao Sisi, what you can do for me now is to find a way to turn the 5 formulas in your head into real products, and use them in Tongshan factory. Zhuo Jingxi was not very confident. Isn't this too difficult? Although I know how to synthesize them now, you're too far ahead of the current era. I'm afraid. Qin Guang waved his hands. Don't be afraid. I can tell you with 100% certainty that although these 5 major formulas look high-end, they are actually stuck at the current industrial level. If Prince is really as powerful as you say, then you can think about it carefully. With the current equipment in Prince's laboratory, it should be enough to meet the basic production needs. Perhaps some parts of the equipment are lacking, but it doesn't matter. There are so many research institutes around the world. You should be able to find suitable equipment and raw materials. But now that I've fallen out with Prince, we can't buy the equipment ourselves. You don't know how expensive the equipment is. The production cycle is extremely long. Even if you have the money to place an order now, I'm afraid it will take 1 to 2 years for everything to be in place. Besides, a complete set of equipment of this level can't be bought without an investment of hundreds of millions of RMB. Do you know how much the total equipment investment for our school's photocatalyst laboratory is? After so many years, it's already over 100 million. And the total value of Prince's equipment, I personally estimate, is definitely no less than 300 million USD. And this is a conservative estimate. Qin Guang was slightly speechless. Although he knew that doing scientific research was very expensive, he really didn't expect it to be like this. But on second thought, as long as they successfully produced a mature result, it represented a potential market of tens of billions of USD. It was not surprising that the research and development cost of the equipment was as high as hundreds of millions of USD. Taking into account the cost of personnel and other consumables, with the power of the formula that Zhuo Jingxi stole, the research and development cost should be in the tens of millions of USD. For such a large company like Prince, the amount of money spent on research and development in a year ranged from tens of millions of USD to hundreds of millions of USD. That's not important. Let's do this first. You go back to the school's laboratory first and try using the school's equipment. If it doesn't work, we'll think of another way. What way? Qin Guang gritted his teeth. I'll think of a way to get financing, borrow money from the old men, or find the rich Tang Jie fund in America to invest. We'll set up our own laboratory, establish a research institute, focus on the conversion of the results of these 5 formulas. Also, if we really don't have enough time, we'll spend money to find Prince to use their equipment. We'll think of a way to get it done within 3 months. Then how much investment do you need? Qin Guang smiled. If all 5 formulas are successfully converted, how big do you think the market will be? Zhuo Jingxi thought for a long time and said tentatively, top 100 in the world? Market value of hundreds of billions of USD? Qin Guang nodded. That's right. Chapter 1055. Dreams were beautiful, but food had to be eaten one bite at a time. Qin Guang chatted with Zhuo Jingxi for more than half an hour. He first sent her to Tongshan factory, then went to Guoming's office to explain things for an hour or so, and then returned to Wujing overnight. He had already made 70 to 80% of the preparations for Tongshan Industrial Factory and Xiaoguang Environmental Protection. It was almost time to let go. Next, he could only do his best and leave it to fate. Public opinion had already settled. Song Ningyuan and Zheng He had tried to show off last time, accompanied by the second-in-command of Tongshan City, but they had been chased away by the old master who had beaten them to death. Those two silly brothers knew how powerful they were. Even if they were unwilling, they wouldn't dare to cause trouble as openly as last time. I don't like you. If you're a dragon, you have to coil up. If you're a tiger, you have to lie down. You have real skills. You have contributed a lot to China's environmental protection, so I didn't want to play dirty with you at first. Let's not talk about personal relationships. I, Qin Guang, think highly of the Tiansong Water Company. You're amazing. In addition, you used your connections to prevent domestic experts from participating in the reconstruction of Tongshan Industrial Factory, and also ruined the Lu Chemical Company's investment. Although I'm not very happy about this, I don't particularly care. Overthrowing and rebuilding was originally a scheme of power that I had no choice but to use. Now I have another choice. I don't even need to rebuild. I just like to see you embarrassed when you find that your punches are in the air. In the end, now that you've done the first step, if it really goes to that step, I'll still have to do it 15 times in 4 months. At that time, I'll play dirty with you with a clear conscience. This was Qin Guang's current plan. It all depended on whether teacher Zhuo could make the 5 god-level photocatalysts that could be industrialized in Tongshan Industrial Factory within 3 months with the support of his own support. If she wanted money, he would pay for it no matter how much. Even if he emptied his pockets, he could at most beg from rich old men, or at most pull in investments. With his current reputation, financing shouldn't be a big problem. It was the table where he had dinner with Bai Hua and Lin Jingwei in Yanjing's courtyard. There were more than 10 people, including Xin Yuliang. All of them were rich and had lots of money in their pockets. Furthermore, wasn't the Tang Jie fund that Tang Xiaokai set up in the US a venture capital investment? What was venture capital? If there was no risk, then there would be no profit, so he would not invest. Old man's project seems to be full of risks and looks very sci-fi. But in fact, it is a profitable project. Everything is ready-made, and if it is done well, it will be a $100 billion market. It's not like I'm cheating student Xiao Kai. If I ask you to invest, you'll still get rich. Some people might say, what if student Xiao Kai doesn't think highly of me? What kind of joke was this? If he really didn't think highly of it, then he would just have to force a deal with him. If one deal couldn't solve the problem, then he would have to do it a second time. As for the fact that he still needed funds for the Oscars or the perfect body of the god, he had invested all of his savings in this area? Actually, it didn't matter. He had so many successful operations experience. In the field of content creators and planning suppliers, he had already become a golden signboard. Student Xiao Tsong's trust in him should be unreservedly. If he asked student Xiao Tsong to sponsor him, he would always be able to produce a lot of cash. Moreover, Xiao Tsong would probably have to carefully consider the cruel reality that if he rejected his request, he would very likely lose his position as the strongest streamer. Back then, he had suddenly thought of not signing an ordinary streamer contract with him. As an online streamer, he was still completely free. Xiao Tsong was probably suffering and happy at the same time. On the contrary, he had completely taken the initiative in the cooperation between the two of them. Other than that, no matter what Song Ningyuan and that unlucky Zheng He wanted to do next at Tongshan Factory, they definitely did not have the guts to drive a bulldozer and directly flatten Tongshan Factory before the 4-month deadline was up. At most, they could only fan the flames in the dark and make some small moves that could not be seen in public. It would not hurt the company's foundation. Regardless of whether the small pretreatment pool with 5 process lines was useful in the end, it had to be repaired. Even if it was for naught in the end, he had to admit it. Of course, he actually didn't want to wait that long. It would be best if teacher Zhuo could come up with a decision in a week or 2. In the current situation, could he do it in China or not? If it didn't work, he would immediately move abroad and find a way to communicate and coordinate with Prince's laboratory to borrow Prince's platform to carry out the next step. It must be finally determined within a month, under the current level of science and technology, with teacher Zhuo's coordination and overall planning ability, whether the production of the new photocatalyst could be completed within 3 months. If it couldn't, then the reconstruction plan of Tongshan Industrial Factory must be forcibly started by next month at the latest. If it was possible, he would wait for the results with peace of mind. The reason for Qin Guang's plan was not difficult to understand. He wasn't thinking about others. Of course, the factory had to be saved and the water had to be up to standard. He had studied environmental protection, and now he was doing environmental protection by accident. Although the matter was strange and deceptive, it was all caused by Lu Li. But Qin Guang also felt that perhaps from the moment he chose environmental science more than 3 years ago, it had become a destiny. In his bones, he still wanted to become a person who was beneficial to the times. Otherwise, when he heard Teacher Zhuo's dream, it wouldn't have made his blood boil. The more power a person had, the more great things they could do, and the more responsibilities they had to carry on their shoulders. He had learned so many skills in the past, but in the end, there were only the following 4 people who could really shoulder the responsibility, shoulder the righteousness, carry the mountains and rivers, and benefit others. He had become the strongest pilot. The new version of pilot safety operating procedures that he had participated in developing could effectively reduce safety hazards in civil aviation flights. Saving a life was better than building a 7-storied pagoda. Although Qin Guang didn't deliberately show off in this matter, he still felt a sense of accomplishment in his heart. As for the fighter piloting skills that he had taught, he didn't care about it. Even if this knowledge really became someone else's killing skills in the future, he couldn't do anything about it. He didn't hide it either. He wanted to become stronger. The air forces of the world had to become stronger. He was fair, neither helping anyone nor harming anyone. To become a master of language and master all the languages of mankind, he had sorted out a comprehensive set of ideas in his spare time. Currently, Qinguang Brokerage was contacting publishing houses to publish a series of human languages, which were sold all over the world. Every language represented a thought, a way of thinking, which was the precious wealth of mankind. Qin Guang's contribution in this area was also immeasurable. He generously and benevolently shared his knowledge and perfected the inheritance of mankind, which was also something that would benefit mankind for generations to come. He didn't say it or show off, but that didn't mean that he wouldn't secretly feel proud of himself in his dreams at night. He became the strongest martial artist and killed the evil sects and the evil leader Ouyang Tianqing. This was the most straightforward chivalrous act. Up until now, these 5 photocatalysts, strictly speaking, were not abilities that he had mastered. They were just scientific achievements. But once they were used, in addition to bringing huge profits, they could even change the world and restore the rivers and mountains. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they were unparalleled and blessed for thousands of years. Qin Guang didn't intend to become a great man, but he didn't want to become a bad person either. He didn't think that he was that great, nor did he feel that he had changed much, but he had done so much without realizing it. In fact, doing these things was much more interesting than simply being a celebrity or an internet celebrity. He really wanted to promote photocatalysts, but now he couldn't really harm the millions of people in the lower reaches of Tangshan River because of his selfishness. The sooner he solved the problem, the sooner he could return Tangshan River to a pool of clean water. Although Qin Guang was willful and slightly selfish, this most basic principle had never been shaken. When he returned to Wujing, it was already past 10 at night. Qinguang Brokerage had already gotten off work, so he went back to school first. As an authentic undergraduate student, it wasn't easy for him to not be beaten to death with his studies. When Qinguang came back late at night, the few people in the dormitory were used to it. When he entered the door, the few of them were having fun fighting the Dota, so no one noticed him. The 3 of them, along with Gaoye and another girl in the class, formed a ladder. At this moment they were blocked under the high ground and couldn't get out. Qin Guang sneaked behind Lin Jingwei like a ghost and was amused by the head count ratio between the 2 sides. 14 to 28, of course, it was the male and female duo who were blocking the high ground playing mahjong. The opponent was far ahead, and the difference was exactly 2 times. Lin Jingwei's druid manipulation had been popular recently. After the revision, he had been upgraded from an OB carry who relied on bears to a long-range turret-type druid. His equipment looked okay and he had all the necessary equipment for 30 minutes. Qin Guang looked at Lin Jingwei's own data and immediately understood. 6 kills, 6 deaths and 8 assists. People called him 6 shots. His equipment didn't fall behind because of the 14 kills on his side. He had taken 6 kills, and he had assisted in 8 of them. His participation rate was as high as 100%. Looking at Lin Jingwei's tired and sweaty face, only the heavens knew how hard he had worked in order to carry his sister. Qin Guang sneaked behind by Nyangzi and Xiong'er to take a look. Well, these 2 guys had 4 kills each, which meant that Gaoye and the other girl had been playing the entire time. Xiong'er, who was fully focused, was controlling Earthshaker. The only thing he had on him was a pair of flash daggers, which were worth a bit of money. As a support, he had probably spent all his money to buy eyeballs, powder, and mist to protect his brother's development. Xiong'er scrolled through the data of both sides. Qin Guang took a look and instantly understood. No wonder the game was so bad. Gao Ye and the other girl had 0 kills, N deaths and 0 assists respectively. Lin Jingwei's team was basically fighting 3 against 7. Roshan's been stolen. They're definitely going to go up from the middle lane. I have a plan. I'll go around them from the bottom lane, and when they go up I'll push up to the back. You guys kill the Shadow Fiend who goes up with shields. If we take down one of his shields we can still defend for a while. Xiong'er just bored. Don't let him get a BKB. The Night Evernight Assassin, also known as the Cockroach by Nyangzi, let out a shrill roar. He turned around and went down to the bottom lane. This poor guy had been playing the third cockroach for 30 minutes and still hadn't gotten a flash dagger. All he had in his pocket was a push stick. Xiong'er nodded. No problem. The 3 of us at the back will use mist and defend high. Chapter 1056. The cockroach of the white snake was yelling, night God," while hiding in the lower right corner of the high ground. It was as if the wind was bleak and the water was cold. Brothers, when I rush up I'll be killed instantly. Remember to avenge me. No problem. The weak voices of Gao Ye and another girl could be heard in the chat. What should we do? Lin Jingwei said, Gao Ye, you're the skeleton king. You have 2 lives anyway. Don't worry about anything when the fight starts. Just charge forward and hit whoever you can. If your first life dies, throw your second hammer and run back to the back row to eat hot pot. Lu Jing, don't worry about anything else. Just watch me. If they try to kill me, quickly give me a thin burial and heal me. As they chatted, Shadow Fiend's swaggering figure appeared at the bottom of the high ground. The army was pressing down and dark clouds covered the city. It's here. Lin Jingwei focused all his attention on the screen. He pulled back his druid true form, then quickly clicked on the opponent's hero unit to check the opponent's equipment. Looking at Shadow Fiend's luxurious equipment, Qin Guang felt sad and hopeless for Lin Jingwei and the others. From his point of view as the world's #1 expert, if the players were Lin Jingwei and the others, they wouldn't even be able to play this game. They would just throw their keyboards and type GG. That way they wouldn't be able to carry the girls and end up being abused instead. At this moment, Bai Nyangzi finally remembered to look around. Yo, Brother Guang, you're back. Lin Jingwei shuddered. A second later, he jumped up from the chair as if there were springs under his feet. Brother Guang, you can play for me? Qin Guang didn't hesitate. He sat down and took over Lin Jingwei's keyboard and mouse. That's weird. Why does the keyboard and mouse feel so comfortable to use? It's as if they're my family. As a top player, he was very sensitive to external settings. Different keyboards and mice had different feedback and sensitivity. Everyone had different habits. Then Qin Guang looked down. Damn it, aren't these my own peripherals? My custom-made electrostatic capacitor and expensive top-notch mouse? Purple Phantom Ouroboros. Lin Jingwei, this animal. I've only been gone for a little more than a week, and this guy has already taken my heart and liver for himself. Although Qin Guang was cursing in his heart, he instantly made a decision. While operating the shop, he used the money that Lin Jingwei intended to save to buy a blink dagger. At the same time, he swept through White Lady's finances and found that it was just enough to buy a blink dagger. Bai Nyangzi, buy a blink dagger and bring it out. I'll take the pushing staff and you take the blink dagger. Although Bai Nyangzi didn't know what Qin Guang was up to, he knew that he was powerful and followed his orders without hesitation. Gao Ye's shocked voice came from the speakers. Shadow Fiend has started to touch our Highland Tower. What should we do? Qin Guang said calmly, don't worry about it. We still have the tower defense. They won't be able to take down the barracks in a short time. Let them take down the tower first and then come in. They could only watch helplessly as the Highland Tower was touched by Shadow Fiend. The tower's HP dropped rapidly. 3 more slaps and the tower would be destroyed. There was nothing they could do. However, at this moment, even though the opponent had a shield and had superior equipment, the other 4 players were hiding in the fog. They couldn't see them at all. Qin Guang's eyes focused on Shadow Fiend. Countless data appeared in his eyes. From Shadow Fiend's movements, his vision seemed to cross space and he saw how the Shadow Fiend player's mouse clicked on the floor. As Shadow Fiend moved left and right, arrows appeared in Qin Guang's mind. The flowing data below Highland Tower gradually formed in his mind, forming a complete picture. Qin Guang then looked at the shadows below Highland Tower. It was night time, but 4 sneaky shadows that shouldn't exist were moving left and right. Qin Guang seemed to hear the Shadow Fiend player commanding, "You guys watch me take down the tower. Don't let anyone get hit by the fog. If the druids want to attack me, you guys just charge at them." Although he hadn't fought the tower properly for a few days and was suddenly pressed down by Lin Jingwei in front of the computer, he only needed 0.1 seconds to get into the zone. By Nyangzi. Here. I'll count to 3. After that, jump 45 degrees diagonally to the left, and then stab the floor in the direction you jump. Once you're done, look for their squishy support to draw a mouthful of mana, and then use a big attack. Don't be in a hurry to open the spiked shell, just grab the person on the other side and attack. Use a normal attack but don't retreat. Bai Nyangzi nodded heavily, okay. He didn't even ask Qin Guang why he was standing in the middle of the high ground and still wanted to be pushed, or how he was going to push him. He wanted to win. Even if it was just a normal match, he just wanted to win. In this situation, Qin Guang was replaced at the last moment. If he wanted to win, he had to execute perfectly. Qin Guang then instructed Xiong, don't use Shadow Fiend later. Just use the fog and jump 30 degrees diagonally to the floor. You have to wait for Bai Nyangzi to make the first move before you use Shadow Fiend, got it? Got it. Qin Guang nodded, 1. As he kept counting, everyone held their breaths. Lin Jingwei, who was watching from the back, clenched his fists. Lin Jingwei almost wanted to scream because Qin Guang was tapping on the ground, controlling the druid's real body and the spirit bear to walk out together. Someone was going to make the first move. If he took another step forward, he would make the first move. But Qin Guang didn't seem to be aware of the danger. 3. As soon as he said that, the druid's figure disappeared from the spot. Lin Jingwei was stunned. Jumping blade? I didn't drop that equipment. Alright, he just bought it. Damn, is brother Guang crazy? That's the money I saved to buy a life. You're just a cannon in the back row, why would you drop a jumping blade? It's all over. Wait, what's this? Lin Jingwei was stunned for a moment before he suddenly realized that the place where Qin Guang jumped was in the shadows below the high ground. In front of him were 4 enemy heroes who were hiding in the fog. Jumping into the shadows to find the back row of the fogged heroes? Damn, this was too slippery. Then the question was, how would the druid die if he jumped into a group of 4? As Lin Jingwei was thinking about this, he realized that on the other side of the 4 enemy heroes, Bai Nyangzi's cockroach had already appeared a step ahead of Qin Guang, and was smirking as it fiercely stabbed its sharp claws into the ground. 1 stabbing 4. The cockroach's stab created a tidal full-screen effect. At this time, Qin Guang's druid had already started to grab the enemy's weak support witch doctor and started to attack crazily. Tut 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 tut. Although their side was completely behind, the druid, as a C-position equipment, did not fall behind. With 2 slaps, the lightning brought out by the whirlpool spat out wildly. The support had low defense and low HP, and his HP dropped rapidly. Bai Nyangzi's cockroach followed up with a mouthful of mana, and then instantly opened up, immediately breaking through the stealth, and the opponent's weak support fell. At this time, the control time of the cockroach stabbing the ground was about to end. Lin Jingwei looked at the other 3 surviving enemy heroes and clenched his fists. Among these 3, there was a C-position hero with high HP and ATK. The most important thing was that he had BKB, which was the Black King staff that could become bigger and stronger after being activated. Once this person activated the Black King staff, even if it was 5 against 4, they would not be a match. Because, in fact, it was 3 against 4 and their equipment was completely behind. But at this time, a huge ravine fell from the sky, smashing fiercely onto the 3 enemy heroes, causing them to remain in a stunned state. This was Xiong'er's ravine, which was also the floor that Qin Guang mentioned just now. With less than 0.2 seconds of error, he perfectly connected with the cockroach's control time. Lin Jingwei looked at Xiong'er's screen again, only to find that this guy was releasing his 3rd skill, War Totem. The opponent's shadow demon with a shield was the main damage output, but it was being continuously stunned by Xiong'er. Xiong'er followed Qin Guang's instructions and made a ravine diagonally 30 degrees to the bottom right corner. Not only did he control the shadow demon beside him, but the end of the ravine also slapped onto Qin Guang's body, stunning the other 3 enemy heroes. At this time, Qin Guang's druid was still standing in the middle of the enemy's 3 heroes, continuously attacking the second brittle hero like a mad dog. Bai Nyangzi's cockroach was also grabbing this brittle hero and biting it to death. On the other side, Bramble's divine bull, who had moved almost at the same time as the cockroach, relied on 3 stun skills and a single piece of trash equipment, a blink blade, to firmly control the opponent's main damage output Shadow Fiend for nearly 4 seconds. Similarly, it did not allow the opponent to use the Black Emperor staff. The continuous control time between Cockroach and Bull God lasted as long as 4 seconds. In addition to the damage from the 2 skills, coupled with Qin Guang's violent output, the opponent's second brittle support fell immediately. From the moment Qin Guang jumped into the crowd and started attacking, until now when Cockroach jumped in between the 4 people, in a short period of less than 5 seconds, the opponent's equipment was almost overwhelming. In an instant only the 3 big brothers in the first, second and third positions were left. The 2 soy sauce supports were all dead. The extremely difficult 3v7 finally became 3v3. This was because Elegant, who was originally only responsible for pain, and Lu Jing, who was controlling the Shadow Priest, also controlled their respective heroes to rush forward to attack the Shadow Demon. Although the hammer thrown by Elegant's Skeleton King and the stun from Xionger's Bull God completely overlapped and wasted control time, at least it could not deal some damage, right? Although Lu Jing's Shadow Priest did not lose any HP from attacking the Shadow Demon, her skills could still deal some damage. Even so, Qin Guang and the others were still in a bad situation. The 2 enemies beside Qin Guang, the first and third brothers, were about to wake up, and the second brother Shadow Demon with a shield was about to regain his freedom. At that time, almost all of their skills would be on cooldown, but the opponent would still have the Black King staff and ultimate skills. Even if it was a 3v3, they still would not be able to win. At this time, Qin Guang's druid roared in the crowd. This was the druid's signature skill, Savage Roar. Its special effect was to make the opponent's hero lose control and enter a berserk state, causing them to flee towards the opponent's spring for 4 seconds. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.